I tell you, GoPro all of a sudden just randomly stops going live. We'll see how long this live lasts. Useless when you're plowing. Just get caked in snow. Oh, I just got kicked in the face. shit. I definitely can't see shit. Any windshield wiper developers out there, we can develop something that's made for fucking snowplowers. And the goddamn, let's see, let's go way back. Going on 21 years, 22 years been plowing. Well, we're 25 years. No matter what piece of equipment, truck, anything. Never been able to find a decent windshield wiper. You know, on equipment they make heated windshield wipers. I don't want, don't do that on vehicles. They probably want you to charge you a subscription for that too. Douche there last time, so it won't happen again. Woo. No, I didn't hit anything. That's old snow from the previous storm. We had a thaw freeze on top of a thaw freeze event. And just fucking caked everything. So, it's gonna be my last lap down the road. So I'm gonna clean up with the counties done. Positive. The temperature is still supposed to drop. I'm cleaning this shit up before we get a freeze event. Everything's gonna be money. bueno, snow event, snow cycle. Get your shit out of the parking lot. Fortunately, the area we live in, we rarely get a cold event when it's snowing. The cold event usually comes in a day or so after the snow. High pressure system hangs around a little longer than it's supposed to when it mixes with the low pressure system. I don't know, some nerd shit behind it. holding about 34 degrees. OCD in me. The tarmac, gonna have to stack her in the center over the drains, let this pile leach out, come back to it. live doesn't disappear, you'll see it. And you understand what I'm talking about. Slushy river. slap a wet mess. Shovel work there. Fucking lazy garbage guys gonna bitch, I can't get into the dumpsters. Get your fat ass out of the truck. Slow so the shit doesn't spill out on both sides. Try to carry it as long as I can. Keep the solids, let the liquids pass. Sometimes the faster you go, you get a cleaner path, and sometimes the slower you go. This is the slower you go. Oh yeah, that's nice. dumpster, boys. Let's try to get you clean. Cleaner. Try that now. Adjust my candy cane. Pass of all the shit that's spilled. now, but since this shit's so wet. Oh my God, who left a fucking golf cart out, Rodney? The fuck? You know what? Fuck it. Have a pile.
It's you and the, how do you say the guy's name, the tennis player?
Novak Djokovic.
Yeah, Djokovic. I mean, we talk about the healthiest human beings on earth. Professional
playing in the U.S. Open.
Yeah, I know. Which is bananas. The guy's already had COVID, recovered from it. I think he had it twice.
Yeah.
And he's one of the best athletes in the world. I mean, the guy's body's in tip-top condition.
Players are incredible fitness.
Incredible. Yeah. And no, you can't come. You didn't follow the rules. It defies science, defies logic. It doesn't make any sense. None of it makes sense, especially at this stage of the pandemic, air quotes. I mean, what the fuck, man? What was it like for you?
It was really difficult, for sure. For a lot of different reasons. I think I knew that this was coming down. That at some point I was going to talk about my status because I'd chosen to not get vaxxed for reasons that you talked about on your show and I talked about on...
We should just say it because it's kind of important. You're allergic to a medication or a part of the vaccine.
Right.
What is it called?
PEG, polyethylene glycol. And so I did my research. I think, typically speaking, because I'm healthy and I take care of myself, getting vaccinated was not on the top of my list, but you know, I wanted to look into it because everybody was doing it and talking about it and trying to be safe, and I wanted to make sure I was, you know, doing my part if that's what was necessary to keep myself safe and my loved ones safe and my teammates safe. Then I looked into it, and at the time I went on the CDC website and they specifically said, you know, if you're allergic to PEG, we do not recommend you get vaccinated with the mRNA vaccinations. So the only other one available was Johnson & Johnson, and it had just got pulled at the time for blood clots. So I looked into other options, which included an immunization process through a holistic doctor, and I researched and talked to probably a dozen different MDs and found a protocol that I felt like was the best available. I don't know the exact way that they did that, but it was
by injection.
No, it was oral. And
how are they even getting at the root strain of the virus?
I don't know that exactly, or want to get into that exactly. I don't think. But there was hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of people that I knew in this circle that were using, that have been doing this to protect ourselves, because we were thinking, hey, look, you know, for me, I didn't want to risk anaphylactic shock or any type of clotting with, you know, associated with the vaccine. So that was my only option: either do nothing or do this process. And I felt like that this was the best way to protect myself and my teammates, and that the NFL would understand, you know, and maybe grant me a waiver, because one of the most difficult parts about the whole process was there was clearly two classes of player at the facility. There was the vaxxed and the unvaxxed. And the vaxxed had full privileges. They tested once every 2 weeks. They had full privileges on the road. They could go out to dinner on the road. They could go to a concert in town. They could go to a comedy show that was in town. They could be at any place they wanted to, right, and live life normally. Non-vaxxed, fully masked, zero privileges on the road, could not go into establishments with more than 15 people. You could not be around more than three individuals from the team outside the facility. All these different what I think now we all realize were crazy policies, and that's what actually got me into trouble, was that I attended a Halloween party in a 10,000 square foot warehouse with 18 other individuals, all fully vaccinated, and myself not vaxxed, and was eventually fined for that. Ended up getting COVID from a vaccinated teammate of mine who contracted COVID and spread it. And that's where it gets a little bit crazy. And I told this story, I think on the McAfee show, but I said, when I came to camp, they knew I was not vaccinated, right? So you had to submit a vaccination card. That went to the system with the NFL, and obviously I didn't have one, so we were given wristbands too. So everybody in the facility knew who was vaxxed and who wasn't vaxxed. Vaxxed was green, non-vaxxed was yellow. So already it's weird, you know, like wearing your colors out there. And I think, you know, to do an aside here, there was a lot of shaming involved in it.
Gotta pause it. I was gonna pull that other way. Decided not to.
There was a lot of public shaming that was attempted to coerce people to get vaccinated, because not only are you wearing a yellow wristband, you're the only ones wearing masks, and you have to work out by yourself. You can't work out with your teammates.
So no drills, nothing?
Well, you could at practice, but weight room stuff, our weight room every day, we're working out on the side. Just the 7 of us not vaccinated.
Is it because practice is outside and the weight room is inside? Is it
supposedly? Yeah. But so they knew my vaccination status from the start, as did all my teammates. There was a lot of talk about I endangered my teammates, and you know, I lied to my teammates and my team from day one that I returned, which was July 25th probably of 2021. They knew where I was at. Everybody did. Also on the side, I had an appeal going with the NFL. So I said, look, here's my health issues. Here's the protocol I went through. Here's the research behind it. Gave them 500 pages of research from a number of people that put together case-reviewed studies around homeopathy and immunizations and safety in them, and also the efficacy of them. And then I had a conversation with the league, and the league said in this conversation, this one I knew that my appeal was definitely not going to happen, because they said it's not possible for a vaccinated player, person, to contract or transmit COVID if they've been vaccinated. And I said, you got to be kidding me, because I showed up and 5 people, non-players, 5 people fully vaxxed, are out with COVID. So what are you talking about? And he said, you're a conspiracy theorist. Oh boy. And I said, no, I just think I'm a realist. I'm just looking at the facts here. Like you just told me.
What point in the pandemic was this?
This was like beginning of August 2021.
So by then they had already known that breakthrough infections were real. This episode is brought to you by Athletic Greens. What I love about Athletic Greens is that it's a very high quality supplement, but it's just a powder that you pour into water, and you shake up a little bottle of water or stir it into a glass, and you're good to go. About 3 years ago, I found AG1 by Athletic Greens, and I've been hooked ever since. And I mean it when I say it. I take this stuff literally every day. I take AG1 in the morning before I head to the studio. I take it sometimes before a workout. I take it at night if I'm feeling a little run down. It just helps me get through work in a big way, and I bring it on the road with me when I'm traveling. I love the travel packs. Literally every day. At this point, I think half my podcast guests are on it too. With 1 scoop of AG1, you're getting 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, probiotics, and adaptogens to start your day right. And if you want to give it a try, Athletic Greens is giving you a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. Go to athleticgreens.com/Joe and give AG1 a try today. That's athleticgreens.com/Joe. Shout out. This episode is brought to you by Stamps.com.
Oh, Joe, and your
Right
fucking
now,
commercials.
Seasonal excitement, or dread, is really starting to settle in, especially for small businesses. So which side do you want to be on? It's not too late to get your holiday mailing and shipping under control with Stamps.com. Sign up now, and you'll be printing your own postage in minutes. For more than 20 years, Stamps.com has been indispensable for over 1 million businesses, and we're one of them. They've been a sponsor of this show since 2013. That's 9 years of great service. We love them because you get access to the USPS and UPS services you need to run your business right from your computer. No lines, no traffic, no hassle. And if you need a package pickup, you can easily schedule UPS shipping rates. We're talking up to 86% off. This holiday season,
trying to create a center
trade
row here
late
to leach
nights
out
for silent nights and get started
into the
with
drains.
Stamps.com today.
I'll let it
Sign
sit
up with
for
the
a
promo
couple
code
hours.
JRE for a special offer that includes
And
a
it makes this
4-week
shit so
trial
much easier to
plus
push.
free postage and a digital scale for free. No long-term commitments or contracts. Just go to Stamps.com, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage, and enter code JRE. Tap the banner or visit this episode's page to learn more. By then, it had already, the vaccines started being rolled out. What was the first year? It was January of 2020 where they started getting into older people, right?
No, that's when it started.
Right, I'm sorry. January of 2021, rather. Sorry. January of 2021, they started giving out to older people, wasn't that?
They started rolling them out in March and April, because that's when I was going through the process of researching and looking into what I could do to protect myself, having the allergy that I
And
had.
by August, people they were already getting it,
Yes.
even though they had been vaccinated. So this was not,
It wasn't talked about, I don't think, a whole lot.
Right, but it was 4 months
But it was definitely happening.
So it was
Yeah.
definitely happening, yeah. I only known one person at that time, somewhere around April, that had been vaccinated and also got COVID. I just thought it was an aberration.
I didn't, based on what I saw in the first few weeks at the facility, and that's why I thought there was an opportunity. But it was difficult because we were separated. There was a whole other situation that was going on that, also was going on in the rest of society, is that my non-vax teammates who were on the bubble, right? So 53 guys make the active roster, 16 on the practice squad. So that's 69 guys in the squad. There's 90 in camp, right? So of the 7, I think it was about 10 guys not vaxxed. Only a few of us were guaranteed roster spots, like we were going to be on the team. And there's a lot of bubble guys. The general managers, and there was talk around the league out, general managers were not going to keep bubble non-vax players, right? So they were already up against it. Not only did non-vax players have a harder chance of making the squad, but they also had an almost 0% opportunity to get a workout afterwards. So if you get cut, right, and the season starts, every Tuesday during the football season, most teams will bring in anywhere from 5 to 15 guys for workouts, just to see who's out there. Is there any players they can add to the roster? So if you weren't vaxxed, you had a very low percentage, not just of keeping a job, but even getting a job opportunity, like a workout, which is wild. And so after this conversation with the league, I knew that my appeal was going away, and they were doing this, they call it a witch hunt, where they were asking every single player, are you vaccinated? They were asking a bunch of big quarterbacks, and some guys were saying, personal or whatever, didn't want to talk about their status, and it almost guaranteed you weren't vaccinated, right? So then they were getting ripped, and certain guys said, yes, I'm vaccinated, and then they tried to get them to say shit about the teammates, who weren't vaccinated, like dogged their teammates out. So I've been ready the entire time for this question, and had thought about how I wanted to answer it. And I had come to the conclusion, I'm going to say, I've been immunized. And if and talk about my process. But thought there's a possibility that I stand immunized. Maybe they understand what that means, maybe they don't, maybe they follow up. They didn't follow up. So then I go the season, them thinking, some of them, that I was vaccinated. Right? Because the only follow-up they asked was basically asking me to rip on my teammates. Like, what do you say to your teammates who aren't vaccinated? Like, what kind of example do you feel like you're setting, to your teammates who aren't vaccinated? I said, hey, it's everybody's own decision with their body, and we're super healthy individuals. We take care of ourselves. We understand what goes in our bodies, and I don't have any judgment on any decision that a guy makes with their own body, right? But I knew at some point, if I contracted COVID, or if word got out, because it's the NFL and there's leaks everywhere, it was possible I'd have to answer the questions. And then sure enough, I contract COVID at the beginning of November, end of October. And that's when the shitstorm hit, because now I'm a liar. I'm endangering the community, my teammates, all these people, and the attempted takedown of me and my word and my integrity began. But so that was difficult. But I will say, and I'm thankful to be on the show. Like, I really appreciate you and you helping me out during that time. I reached out to you. I think beginning of the season, I feel like, and just said, hey, because you had talked about in your podcast a little bit, you'd had some, controversial, maybe less controversial now, people on there talking
quite a bit
about,
less controversial now,
talking about their, people experts in the field talking about, their own ideas about COVID, and you helped me with a game plan to be ready in case I do get COVID, and I followed it to a T. And when I got COVID, within 36 hours, I was, symptom free and feeling amazing. But the protocols was you're off for 10 days. So I missed a game. We lost a football game. I came back, had to answer a ton of questions about it. Obviously, had my, basically, I lost, the majority of allies I thought I had in the media. The good thing is it drew a real line in the sand, and everybody who wanted to jump on me and trash me did, and showed their true colors. And very few people, kind of in the media at least, stuck by me.
it was like McCarthyism at a certain point in time. It was like a Red Scare. Like everybody was looking for communists. They were just looking for non-vaxxers. It was like a fever in the air because people had been convinced that this was the thing that was going to get us out of the pandemic, and if you didn't follow that thing, that you were the enemy of it. So I can kind of understand why people have that perspective if they hadn't looked into it, which is a weird term, or at least if they hadn't, it's kind of a shallow term, but if they hadn't, consulted with real experts, especially in your case, that when you have an actual allergy, it's a particular issue, and the desire to not take the medication that was pulled for clots, that seems pretty fucking reasonable. But reason was out the window at that point in time.
Well, that's what was crazy to me, was people just said, oh, just get the jab, the Keith Olbermanns of the world, just get the damn jab. And I'm like,
that guy's the gift that keeps giving. He is fucking hilarious. Unintentionally hilarious, like he's a character in a movie. I love it. I hope he keeps talking.
But that was the sentiment. I'm like, anaphylactic shock. Also, I'm super healthy and take care of myself really well. And oh, by the way, I just went from woke up really bad symptoms to 36 hours later, I feel great.
And no one wanted to hear that. No one wanted to hear that there was a way that you could get through it without being vaccinated, and that you would recover very quickly. No one wanted to hear that. And they were coming with all sorts of reasons why you shouldn't even say that.
Oh, and they came after you about horse dewormer, and Sanjay was on here and you mopped the floor with them, and and then he goes back on CNN and basically tries to rip you. It's just like it was ridiculous. But let me just say this point, because I think this is really important. you know, the two main things against me that they want to say. One, that I lied. I didn't. You didn't ask me a follow-up, but I said I was immunized and I went through the immunization process. So I don't know how you would classify that other than say I was immunized, but that to me was the truth, is the truth. You didn't have to follow up. You had to follow up, I tell you what I mean. That's one. Number two, that I don't like, and didn't like the characterization, that I put people in danger, right? That I endangered my teammates, I lied to my teammates. And I already said from day one, they knew, medical staff, everybody in the organization, everybody knew I'm wearing a yellow wristband. I'm not vaxxed. Everybody knew my status. But number two, what non-vax players had to do is we had to test every single morning. So vaccinated players tested once every 2 weeks, right? Non-vax every single morning, every off day, every day of the bye week, off for a week when everybody else is off traveling and enjoying their life. We stayed in Green Bay and we tested every single day. So every day that you saw me, and I've said it before, I go to about 2 places in Green Bay. I go to the grocery store and I go to Barnes & Noble. You know, like, I love to read and I gotta get my groceries. If you saw me at those 2 places, you can be 100% sure that I tested that morning and that I tested negative. Before I even could walk into the facility, I had to test, wait in my car, and then wait for 30 minutes for them to text me and say that you're negative, you can enter the building. Every single day I was at the facility. Every single day that any of my teammates saw me, any of my coaches, every single day that you saw me at Barnes & Noble or at the grocery store, I was negative for that day. Like, I took it seriously because obviously there was a lot going on. Now, I didn't believe in wearing a mask at a press conference. You have a room full of reporters who are fully vaxxed, wearing masks, sitting 30 feet away from me. And again, this goes to the shame. They wanted me as a non-vax player to wear a mask for an interview.
While you're negative, you were tested.
While I'm negative that morning, in a room full of fully vaccinated people who are, none of them are closer than 30 feet away from me.
I don't think during a pandemic there's anything wrong with testing. If you want to keep people safe and you want to keep that from spreading throughout the team, that's probably the best way to approach it. But everything else just seems so nuts. But we're looking at it, you know, hindsight is 20/20, right? We're looking at it from after it's over. And so many people, they just bought the narrative that was being promoted by CNN and MSNBC and wherever, that if you get vaccinated, you can't get COVID, you can't spread COVID. That was the narrative.
And that's my thing. Listen, I get it. Like, you want to test everybody every day? Yeah, that's fine. You want to keep people safe. If that's the benchmark for it. But as we look back now, let's not revise history. Let's not revise history on what actually happened and what was said. Because what was said was, you get the vax, you can't spread it or contract it.
No one seems to say that was a lie, including Burks, who has said that she had always known that it was not going to stop transmission. It was not going to stop people from spreading, which is wild. She would say, we knew you were still going to get it, even if you got vaccinated. Which is, no one said that.
No. Pandemic of the unvaccinated.
Yeah.
What do they call the winter? The winter of death? Or whatever,
Yeah,
for the non-vaxxed?
I saved that. Winter of death and suffering.
Yeah.
It's like they were Game of Thrones. And they were they're talking about the fucking White Walkers coming. Winter of death? I mean, Jesus Christ. It's so wild, because at that point when they had said that, we had already realized, like, oh, this is 78% of the people hospitalized were obese. Most of the people that died were either obese or very overweight or very old.
Comorbidities.
Yeah, 4 comorbidities. At least 4 for like more than 50% of people. Yeah, but people will love to look at someone to be mad at. That's one of the things. And if they can find a guy like you who's killing it.
And our league is one of the greatest, books every single year that's written. It's a mystery novel. You never know what's going to happen. But in a great epic novel, you need your protagonists and your antagonists. You need your heroes and your villains. And I think they just, like, we're going to make this guy the villain. Because he's been so good for so long. And he's not vexed. So let's... But I think it ultimately didn't hurt me because at the end of the season, I was playing, came back from COVID, played Seahawks, won, and I didn't have a great game that game. But the last like 6-7 games, I played really, really well. And then there was a reporter out of Chicago who said that I'm the biggest jerk in the league, and he wouldn't vote for me for MVP because of my vax status. So it kind of put the rest of the other 49 MVP voters, I think, on notice going, oh, are you going to let your personal political bias enter into a conversation about who the most valuable player of the league is and not vote for this guy because he's not vaxxed? I think that played into at least some of their minds at some point because they would have to answer, how do you justify not voting for this guy for MVP?
Right. So ultimately he came out ahead.
Yeah, I think so.
How long was it before you were treated normally? Like you were...
Well, this is the best part. Once the playoffs happened, it went from non-vax testing every single day, and vax at that point had to test once a week now. So it went down from 2 weeks to 1 week. But once you got in the playoffs, you only test if you're symptomatic. Vaxxed or not vaxxed.
Yeah, they didn't want to take any chances once you're in the playoffs.
They want everybody to play.
Of course. A lot of money on the line, baby. When did they start treating you normally, though? Like, did you feel like with the press and with, I mean, now it's
there's still that mark, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Some of those reporters are such cunts. It's just like there's a thing in sports where there's it's way less of it in MMA, but there's a thing in sports where it's par for the course to be a douchebag to players, treat them badly and to talk about them badly, because I guess they have this very special role in society where they get to be professional athletes. Right. So you're allowed to, you know, if there's a dropped ball or there's a play that doesn't go well, you can say all sorts of personal things about them and disparage their character and call them lazy and call them entitled and all these different things that they love to do. And it's really like ramped up in sports more than anywhere. And I think it's because of sports fans. Like sports fans have been doing that forever. You know, when they're at work. You know, you show up at the job and you're like, see that fucking game last night, that guy sucks. You know, and there's this like attitude that they like, I think, repeated. And it's really these clunky personalities. They're not good reporters. They're not like brilliant people. They just have found this thing that they do. They just act like a cunt. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and some of them use my name for a long time to stay on some of their networks.
Yeah. And you never forget.
It's just, you know, I think the interesting thing for me is to see how it changed and whether and how my vaccination status, they couldn't get past that. They couldn't get past years of friendship and me doing favors for them, doing interviews with them if they needed something, making sure I made time to, you know, give them a soundbite or do an interview or come on their show. And I'm talking about probably a dozen that I thought were allies in the media, meaning friendly to me, and that they knew, like, if they needed a guest or something and I had the time, I would always make time for them. And haven't heard from any of them.
I think you got off light. It's good. Cut them out. If that's the kind of people they are, you know, either they should apologize to you and learn and grow, or get them out of your fucking life.
I mean, that's why I said it was a blessing. It really was, because it made it clear who is in my corner and who is not.
Yeah. I mean, whatever happened to be like a charitable, forgiving person? Isn't that like a quality?
There's none of that. If you don't follow the mainstream narrative, or if you don't agree with me, and take out the mainstream narrative, if you don't agree with me, I can't be friends with you, because I can only I got to live in an echo chamber, and that's what society and social media has done, I think, on so many levels. Like you're saying earlier, 20 years ago, the guy bitching at, about his favorite player who played bad is bitching to his buddies at work, and now they're all on social media going nuts and stirring up, and like we were talking about earlier, it takes just a couple people with an opinion that can, sway something in a direction, and then, start this landslide of negativity around something.
Yeah, that's why I don't go on those things. I just post and ghost. I post and I get the fuck out of there. I mean, it's valuable for me. Social media is for, podcasts and comedy and stuff like that. And, occasionally I like to point out cool stuff. Like they found some.
Yeah, you do every time. Some of the robot stuff's really fucking crazy.
It's coming. We're fucked. We're fucked. They're coming. I mean, whether they're using them for military, they're going to use them for law enforcement, but we're going to have robots wandering through the streets telling you, show your papers.
iRobot.
Yeah, it's going to happen. I remember that movie used to be so fun. Because I used to think of it as like, oh, wow, this is never going to happen, but this is kind of crazy if it did. And now I'm like, Jesus, when is that going to happen? Because you see those Boston Dynamics robots. Like my friend Lex Friedman has one, and it was over his house. I was like, Jesus, man, it's like someone having a werewolf in their house. Like, go with this fucking thing. Get this out of here.
I saw a robot video the other day of robots shooting at targets, and they were fucking with it. They were hitting in the back and messing around, and it still find its range. And
I think that's fake. Isn't that one fake? Because there's a series of guys that do these amazing CGI things, and I think that's one of the things they did. I think they're fake because that was scary. Yeah, it's scary.
But some of those dog robots, that open doors and stuff.
Have you ever seen that? I think it's called Heavy Metal. It's an episode of Black Mirror.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that episode where the robot's chasing after the lady? That is so possible. So possible. All they have to do is be able, and if it's tracking with satellite, and if you have a fucking RFID chip that they can track, or some sort of a Bluetooth locator, like an air tag, and they know where you are at all times. This episode is brought to you by Athletic Greens. AG1 replaces a lot of other supplements. It's my daily multi-mineral and pre and probiotic for my gut health, adaptogens, and a greens blend. I fucking love Athletic Greens, and I was visiting Andrew Schultz. I was doing his podcast, and I was a little jet lagged, just got off the plane, and I looked over and he had Athletic Greens. I'm like, oh, perfect. I dumped it in a bottle of water, shook it up. One delicious scoop of Athletic Greens, AG1, and you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, and whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. It supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, your recovery, your focus, and anti-aging. And it tastes good. It doesn't taste like shit. It's easy to digest. And Athletic Greens is giving you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. So, go to athleticgreens.com/JRE to give AG1 a try today. That's athleticgreens.com/JRE. Check it out. I love it. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Sometimes I wish life had a user manual, something to troubleshoot when you're feeling stuck. Unfortunately, it doesn't. And we all get stuck sometimes. Therapists are trained to help you figure out the cause of challenging emotions and learn productive coping skills. BetterHelp has connected over 3 million people with licensed therapists. It's convenient, secure, and accessible anywhere, 100% online. Everyone deserves to feel their best, and BetterHelp makes it easier to get started. As the world's largest therapy service, they match millions of people with professionally licensed and vetted therapists available 100% online. All the benefits of in-person therapy, plus it's more convenient, more accessible, and more affordable. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to match with the therapist. If things aren't clicking, you can easily switch to a new therapist anytime. It couldn't be simpler. No waiting rooms, no traffic, no endless searching for the right therapist. Get unstuck with BetterHelp. Learn more and save 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/JRE. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/JRE. We're about a decade away from
And we're
a
all
very
eating,
strange world.
and we're all eating insects.
Yeah. We're either insects or Bill Gates fake meat. Oh, he's gonna make us eat his fake meat so we look like him. He's non-health experts. He's really unhealthy people that want to tell people how to be healthy. It's very strange. And they all want to use climate change as this is the main reason why you have to follow this rule that's going to enrich them beyond imagination. If they can really get you to get off of meat and start eating a plant-based burger that their company develops, or a bug-based burger. I'm not opposed to eating bugs. I was the host of Fear Factor, right? I've eaten a lot of bugs. And last time I went to Mexico, actually, when we went to this resort and we got to this place and they had a bowl of like stir-fried crickets. That it was like a teriyaki flavored stir-fried cricket. I was like, what the fuck is this? This is like a few years back, before the pandemic, and I tried it. It's not bad. It's kind of salty. They were good. It's like a bug is no different than a crab. Crabs are delicious. They're just big bugs. That's what they are. In fact, one of the things we found out from Fear Factor is that people that are allergic to shellfish are also allergic to roaches. And we found that out the hard way. I ate a roach.
That
I
was
ate a
great.
roach on Fear
Great
Factor.
show, by the way.
It's a fun show.
Yeah.
But roaches don't taste bad. They don't. They taste like almost nothing. It's like a flavor. It's gross that you're eating a roach, but when you're eating it, I was like, this is nothing. Not much going on here. If I had to eat roaches to stay alive, I'd eat roaches. Like if I was trapped somewhere, I'd eat roaches.
It's fast.
Nah, I'd rather be full. I have a distorted perception of food, obviously, because of Fear Factor, I think. I know what you can eat and what you can't eat, and most of it's psychological. And a lot of things that we serve people, in fact, were delicacies in other countries. Like, I had a lot of Filipino friends, and we serve balut, which is, I believe it's a duck. It's a fertilized duck egg, and so it has, like, the embryo in the egg. And it's a delicacy in the Philippines. And so my Filipino friends were like, that's hilarious. We eat that all the time. We love it. Have you ever seen balut?
Yeah, I have now. I feel like I've seen the episode. I used to watch the show all the time.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's just in your head.
But it's like it's like a real kind of
feathers and everything. That's it. There you go. Yeah. So they had to eat that. That little fertilized duck. Yeah, I don't know how that ever became a delicacy. It's probably very nutritious, if I had to guess. I mean, it's got all the organs and everything in there. It's probably very rich in protein and... I didn't eat one of those, but they served them.
What did you eat, though? Like spiders and
everything. I ate, on the very first episode, I ate a sheep's eyeball. That was not that bad either. That's all in your head. I ate a tomato hornworm. Not that bad. Didn't taste bad. I ate an Iraqi cave-dwelling spider. I ate live or dead? Yeah, live before he got in my teeth. He was dead when I swallowed him. I ate a Madagascar hissing cockroach. That's one of the big ones. That was again, it was nothing. It didn't taste like anything. It was like very bland.
Would you put a little Tabasco or something?
No, I think that was an episode where there was a woman who was scared to do it. She wouldn't do it. I believe it was Celebrity Fear Factor. And she wouldn't do it. And so I said, listen, if you do it, I'll do it. And so I said, well, I'll do it. It's no big deal. I just wanted to get her to move on. Like, come on, you can do this. But I'm so jaded by it at this point.
And now?
Yeah, same thing. Doesn't bother me. Like, people can throw up right in front of me. There it is. So that's the lady. So that's the Madagascar hits. So, it was no big deal.
Kevin Federline?
Yeah, that's the other guy. Yeah, one of the Backstreet Boys. Yeah. Which one is it?
Kevin.
Yes.
Federline.
It was fun. Steve Baldwin. But no big deal. It's in your head. It's like, what am I eating? But really, you're not convinced. I mean, people ate animal dicks on that show. You served them buffalo penis,
Ladies, man.
deer penis. Yeah, guys are equal. It was a weird show.
That was awesome.
But yeah, eat the bugs. Eat the bugs. Yeah, I don't understand that. I guess it's because it is a good source of protein. It is like cricket protein. I know guys who eat that. They have cricket protein shakes. Although there's like a powdered cricket protein. Well, apparently it's like a good source of protein. They eat it as a protein shake. Well,
Still on the fence.
it should. It's not as good. Nice ribeye is better. You know, nice elk steak, nice buffalo.
They do too.
That's even. Yeah, but I mean, it's just to what we're saying. It's just a weird time in terms of like control and in terms of the influence of these forces with amazing resources that are trying to lead society in a very specific direction. Or advertisement where they're like, you will own nothing and you will be happy and be happy. Just imagine saying that to people. Because that doesn't even make any sense. Because someone's going to own it. So who owns it? The state? The state owns it? What about you? You own anything? You rent it? Whatever you want. How about, what if I'm already happy?
You will give us your land.
Imagine being able to say that this is going to make you happy. Like, how the fuck do you know it makes you happy?
I think whenever I reach a point where I think I'm really fucks, and I think the world,
That is a strange thing, because I never even knew that was a thing until like a couple of years ago. And then I started watching.
nothing to see here, just the the world leaders talking about policy today.
Yeah, no big deal. The CEO of Pfizer was on that. He was talking about a medication that you swallow that has some sort of chip in it that can tell people whether or not you actually took the medication. And he says, imagine the compliance.
Yeah.
And this is the guy that profits at an extreme from these medications. I mean, he is insanely wealthy. He is the CEO of one of the biggest corporations on planet Earth. And he's saying, imagine the compliance. Compliance.
Yeah.
He's not saying, imagine how many healthy people we could have, imagine how many diseases we can cure.
Of all the words to use there, compliance.
Compliance is bottom line requires compliance. The more compliance, the more
Make sure
sales.
they're taking those pills. Brought to you by Pfizer.
75% of all television advertising is all pharmaceutical drugs.
And aren't we one of the few countries that allows
Only
for
two. Only two. The other one is New Zealand. New Zealand is horrible. All those other countries, I think that we're out of our fucking minds advertising for all these things that will make you happy. There's a girl running through a wheat field, there's great music playing, and she was,
Here's the side effects.
yeah. But then we're going to finish with a happy thought, running through a meadow. The side effects are great. Playing with your grandson. Yeah, it's a strange thing. It's a strange time because our information, our media has been co-opted by money, and the money that comes from selling pharmaceutical drugs. And we all know, look, I remember I went and I got my nose fixed. I had a deviated septum. And I walked out of there, and the doctor tried to give me 2 different painkillers. I said, no, I'm not. And he said, but you I said, well, how's it going to get worse? How's it going to get worse than this? Like, it's really not that big a deal. Like, I've been hitting my nose fucking 200 times. I don't know. It was broken. I broke my nose at least half a dozen times. I don't even know if it was broken. Because, I mean, in training, you leave and you have a bloody nose, it's totally normal. Because we're talking about, like, the deviation of cartilage. It didn't break the physical structure of my nose more than twice that I know of, like the actual bone itself. But the cartilage was separated and there was blood in there all the time. So it was normal. So this guy telling me that it's going to be worse than what I normally experience, I was like, how? He was like pushing these on me. For a couple of weeks, I think. And then it was nothing.
Yeah, I mean the pain management, especially in our sports, fascinating to see accessible to get Oxy, Percocet.
What did you ever play on it? What did you play on?
Percocet.
And what was the impact on your physical performance?
I mean, it was more for pain management. I wasn't taking like any dosage, but just here's the thing. I had knee issues for a long time, and you take anti-inflammatories. Right? So you're taking anti-inflammatories that all come with a warning. If you take this more than a few weeks, you gotta get your blood tested, right? Because it can do damage to the blood. There's so many different things you can take for anti-inflammatories that are natural, that don't cause damage to your body.
Right.
CBD. Yeah. But CBD is probably, that's always said, well, there's not enough research yet about, CBD and any positive help that it can do for your body. But we're still giving out painkillers. Way less, and it's actually voluntary now because we're using that. Again, this is what we're talking about. It's aspect. It's the whole treatment of professional life. We're still giving it.
When did they stop doing it as frequently? Was it when the opioid crisis kicked in?
No, there was I think there was one team that that people were kind of raving the cupboards, and they put a stop to it. So now it's more of a pharmacy-based thing where you got to sign in and sign out, and it's monitoring different things.
But they don't discourage players from playing on clean pills? I mean, I can't imagine USADA is very strict in terms of like what you're allowed to take, what you're not allowed to take, and they test people very frequently. So much so that Paulo Costa, which just fought in the last UFC, they actually tested him the day of the weigh-in, which caused a huge
Yeah,
I mean, because I can
but
imagine.
in the NFL, I mean, for years, 70s and 80s, there was a lot of stuff, guys were taking crazy stuff. Even when I was in high school, people were taking breakthroughs, basic speed, playing on that. But like total shots up until recently were really, across the league, kind of standard.
Toradol's an anti-inflammatory, right?
Right. But some of the pain management, it's I just don't understand why there isn't more natural options looked into that are out there that have research behind it. And we're still pushing the same, Percocet, Vicodin, Oxy, I saw at one point a teammate of mine who was unable to get treatment on a post-surgical operation without being put on anesthesia because of an addiction to pain medicine.
So he was so addicted that they couldn't even risk him trying.
Yeah, and I know of multiple teammates over the years, I'm talking about high school, college, and pros, who have dealt with their own relapses around addiction to pain medicine.
See, they're so addicted. And that's another thing that the pharmaceutical company tried to lie about. Pharmaceutical companies tried to lie. I mean, that's dope sick. That's the premise of that whole show. Like, they were lying about whether or not these things were addictive when they knew they were. These are the same people. The same people that were telling you that you had to get jabbed are the same people that were telling you that opioids were not addictive.
That paid out $2.3 billion in the biggest fraud case in the history of the world.
More than 60,000.
When I was in college, everybody was taking violence. Everybody. All my teammates taking violence.
I know a guy who stroked on
Chantix, right?
Yep.
As well. I think you said on your show, but there's something crazy. I can't remember the exact number, but how many different products get pulled every single month that were
FDA approved.
FDA approved?
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
That was with John Abrams, who was a doctor whose work to litigate against pharmaceutical companies, in particular against Vioxx when they were doing that. They had pretty clear information that Vioxx was going to be damaging people. They knew there was problems, and they literally said there's going to be some issues, but we're going to do very well. That's literally internal memos saying we're going to do well financially, but people are going to have like that. Those kind of issues, like cardiovascular issues, blood clotting issues, strokes. They knew it was going to be. They knew it. And they got charged. I believe what happened was they made $12 billion, and they were fined $5, which is it's just crazy that you could have any profit margin of killing 60,000 people. And these are the people we're supposed to trust. Like, all of a sudden, people put aside all of their thoughts that they had kept. You talk to anyone about whether or not the pharmaceutical companies were ethical, whether or not they were telling the truth, whether or not they promoted dangerous medications that were unnecessary, and everybody would say yes. Those same people were calling you a plague rat. It's kind of funny now that it's over. But in the heat of it,
It wasn't exactly the healthiest swath of the population either that was coming after.
Oh no, the people that came after me the hardest were fat. It was hilarious. And I was like, do you understand that whatever you're doing to your body is way, way worse than what COVID's going to do to you? Like, what you're doing to your body by being fat like this, like, if you think you're going to prevent that with some medication that just keeps you from getting COVID, and it didn't, it's still, you're fucking dying, man. You're eating yourself to death. You're eating shitty food, and you have a sedentary lifestyle, and you're probably taking all sorts of pharmaceutical medication for anxiety, depression, and all these other things that are fucking with your head. It's wild, man. It's a wild time because people really are conditioned to think that they can take a medication and cure all their ills, and cure almost instantaneously something that has become a problem from lifestyle choices that you've built up over years and years and years of body abuse. So you've abused your body for so long, and then you think it's all of a sudden a pain pill or a this pill or a that pill is going to fix all that. And no one's telling you, hey, you gotta lose weight. Hey, you gotta drink water. Hey, you should really exercise on a regular basis. Hey, what about vitamins? Do you know about vitamin D?
Go out in the sun. 90% of the population is vitamin D deficient. Something like that.
It's very high. Very high. Yeah.
It might not be 90, but I don't fact checked on that one.
I think it's in the high 70s.
Okay.
I think let's find out what percentage of the population. It's probably diminished because there has been quite a bit of publicity during the pandemic about vitamin D deficiency, because they showed what percentage of people who were in the ICU. I think it was at one point in time, it was 84% of the people who were in the ICU were insufficient or deficient.
That's got to be low there, 42%.
That was a lot higher than that. That's 2018. I don't think that's accurate. I think it's higher. I don't know. I think
over 65. I would say just
over 60,
something you just said a second ago. I would frame it slightly differently. I think you said people are conditioned to think. I think people are conditioned not to think. They're conditioned to do exactly what they're told. By their news station, by their politician. People don't want to think for themselves.
Well, they're conditioned at work. Think about if you have a job. The majority of people in this country have a job where you have a boss. The boss is a very small minority. The majority of people work for that boss. If you work for a corporation, they have very strict rules that they'd like you to follow. There's behavior rules, there's language rules, there's dress rules, there's rules about the time you're supposed to be there and the amount of work you're supposed to do and what you're supposed to take home and what's required of you. People are conditioned to have someone tell them what they can and can't do. And then they get off on Friday and they can't wait to get drunk. And that's part of why they want to get drunk, is they want to escape. They want to escape this grind of a world. A person who can become autonomous, a person who can have their own job where it's their product that they're selling, or their art that they're selling, or there's something we can be self-sufficient. That is the biggest freedom that a person can have in this culture. And most people don't have that freedom. So most people are conditioned to have someone lay the rules out for them, tell them when they're supposed to be there, tell them what they get when they work for an hour. That most people don't have the ability to just think for themselves. It's been taken away from them because they want to make a living.
And then you get into student loans.
Well, that's the craziest one, right? Because you can't even get rid of those.
Right? Every other, right?
Every other loan. Yeah, you can go bankrupt.
You can bankrupt.
Yeah,
Except for
student loans. I know of people that are getting Social Security docked. Their Social Security money is being docked because they owe student loans. So you're at the finish line. It's the end of your life. And you owe money for loans you took out when you were 18. And now you're 65. That's a rough way to leave this life.
for sure, right?
Crazy. I mean, it's a fucking business. And it's also, for many people, something that they're not going to use for whatever occupation they choose. I mean, maybe it will help them get a job, or it shows they have a bachelor's in this, or a master's in that. But there's a large amount of people out there that are out there working in a field that is not even their field of study in college. So they have this student loan that didn't even apply to what they wound up doing for a living, and then they have to pay it off forever. And it's subsidized by the government. So it's an extraordinarily expensive endeavor. And you're making this choice when you're 18, you don't know what the fuck you're doing.
No.
You have zero idea. It's the most vulnerable time in your life before your frontal lobe forms. You're not even 25 years old, and you're making these life decisions that will affect you forever. But it's not pushed.
It's shame. You're shamed almost if you don't go to college, right?
Oh yeah.
It's never pushed like, hey, go learn a technical skill.
Right.
Where you can do a year of apprenticeship or college or study, and then go make six figures in a job.
One of the biggest times in my life where I felt like a loser was right out of high school, because I took a year off, and I remember just telling people I was going to take my fucking life. So I was going to be a loser. So I really only went to college so that people didn't think I was a loser. That's true.
And what'd you study?
Well, I went to UMass Boston, and it was one of those deals where you didn't have to have your SATs, because it was like continuing education program. So I just started taking courses there, and I did it for 3 years, and then I was like, oh, then I quit.
Yeah. It's worked out.
It did, but it didn't have to. But I mean, nothing I studied was interesting to me. I mean, in terms of something to do for a living. I thought, what am I going to do? I just couldn't figure out anything that was like a traditional job that seemed even remotely appealing. Everything looked like death. It just looked like the death of fun, the death of hopes and dreams. It was just...
But also you're 18, 19, and 20.
Yeah. I was so full of energy too. I just wanted to go do stuff.
Yeah.
I just did the last thing I want to do is sit in some fucking classroom and listen to some nonsense and memorize it.
That's what I like about friends in Australia or Europe. Most of those kids, they finish school and then they take a year, right? They save up their money and then they take a year of like traveling.
Yeah.
Different cultures, areas, come to the States, different parts of Europe, Asia, whatever, and like go to different cultures.
Think
figure out
about
what
things.
Yeah.
Find out what's attractive to you.
What they're into.
Yeah.
Meet different people.
Yeah, that's one of the great things about social media now, is that people are able to make a living off of things that were very difficult to pursue, like art. Like if you have like really good art, you can, post it on social media and people share it, and the next thing you know, you have orders coming in. If you're painting for a living.
Yeah.
It's great. It's amazing. That's one of the beautiful things about our time. The more people can escape a system where someone tells you what to do, I think the better. I mean, there's some people that want that, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with wanting a good job. There's great jobs out there. Nothing wrong with that. But if you're one of those people like me that just can't fucking sit still, and that seemed impossible to you, back then, you just felt like a loser. You felt like a fool.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was, what colleges did you get in? Oh, I didn't get in this one.
Yeah.
Didn't get in the UC.
There's so much pressure on people.
Yeah.
And there's zero. I mean, when you were a kid and you were playing football, what was the attitude about playing in the NFL? Was it that this was a pipe dream? Was it something that was realistic because you were talented? Like, how did people approach that?
I was on a spring break trip with a buddy of mine, I remember, and yes, we were 15 hours in a 15-passenger van going down to Mexico doing some like humanitarian work down there. That was how I'd spend my sophomore year. And I remember you're talking about who knows what, because back then you might have had a Walkman, but other than that, you didn't have any technology. And my buddy said, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to play NFL. He's like, right. You'll never make it.
You should call that dude up every month.
But it was a pipe dream. It was a dream, for sure, but a pipe dream. And one of my favorite stories about somebody who didn't believe in me was I had this teacher at Cal, and I wrote this paper in a food appreciation class. That was the class, food appreciation.
I can go to that class.
And there's like 15 kids on the team in that class. Class of like, let's say 120 people, right? And I wrote a paper, and she said I cited incorrectly. So we had these breakout classes. Out of 120, there'd be like 6 breakout classes of 20. So in my class of 20, let's say 15, it was like 3/4. So 15 of the kids didn't cite it exactly how she said. 14 of them got to rewrite the paper. Not me. So I said, okay. I'm gonna go see her at her hours, right? So at Cal, we had practice at 2 o'clock. So you had to be up top at the football facility at 2 o'clock. So I told my quarterback coach, I'm gonna be late this day. I gotta go to this teacher's hours will start at 2 o'clock. So I went to her office and she was ready for me. She had my paper out. I said, look, I'm not asking for a special privilege here, but the other 14 kids who got an F on the paper got to rewrite the paper and I didn't. And she ripped me apart. You are an entitled athlete. You expect things to be given to you. What are you going to do with your life? And I said, I'm going to play in the NFL. She said, no way in hell.
No way in hell.
You won't make it. You'll get hurt and you'll never make it. You will need your education and you'll never make it. And what I've seen from you is you won't amount to anything.
Oh my God.
And I said, watch me.
What a terrible thing to say to a kid.
Big props to that food appreciation teacher at Cal for trying to ruin, my life and my dreams, and just gave me some air.
This episode is brought to you by Liquid IV. Liquid IV is a product I use almost every single day. I use it after hard workouts, sauna sessions. I use it if I got a little tipsy the night before and I want to make sure that I don't get hungover. Liquid IV is a fantastic way to hydrate yourself and replace your electrolytes. And the science behind it, their hydration multiplier, it is great tasting, non-GMO, and the electrolyte drink powder is powered by cellular transport technology to deliver hydration into the bloodstream faster and more efficiently than water alone. It has a precise ratio of sodium, glucose, and potassium, plus 5 essential vitamins, B3, B5, B6, B12, and vitamin C, and it tastes great. It's awesome flavors, tropical punch. I love acai berry. They got pina colada, guava, lemon. They all taste great. And there's a ton of different flavors. You can grab Liquid IV in bulk nationwide at Costco, or you can get 15% off when you go to liquidiv.com and use the code JOEROGAN, all one word, at checkout. That's 15% off anything you order when you use the promo code JOEROGAN at liquidiv.com. Experience better hydration today at liquidiv.com.
DOT.
Promo code JOEROGAN.
My entrance.
Tap the banner or visit this episode's page to shop at. This episode of the JRE is brought to you by ZipRecruiter. Running and hiring for a business at the same time is hard, especially during the holidays, which is why someone else can do it for you. And who better to hire than ZipRecruiter? They can find essentially anyone for any job, like a turkey catcher, a bilingual Santa Claus, nut gift basket assembler, and a reindeer wrangler. Those are all real jobs on ZipRecruiter right now. If they can hire for those roles, they can hire for you. Head to ZipRecruiter.com/Rogan to try ZipRecruiter for free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/Rogan. Tap the banner or visit this episode page to learn more. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
The crazy thing is, I was probably the best athlete in that class. And I was actually trying to take it seriously.
So she specifically singled you out just because you're an athlete. It didn't allow you to. So she wanted to damage your grades.
The best part is, so I'm late to my QB meeting, and I have a meeting after practice today with the liaison. He was, I don't know what his exact title was, but he was liaison between the players and the school, basically. And I said, hey, look, here's what happened. I went in this office, I told the whole story, and I was trying to get the same treatment as the other 14 kids who got to rewrite the paper, and she kind of ripped my ass and was a little drawing for it. I didn't think that was, fair or appropriate. They brought some heat down on her, so she had a vendetta against me. At the end of the semester, she wrote up a 3-page paper trying to get me expelled from campus. I had to go in front of the Judicial Affairs Board at Cal in some kangaroo court and ended up having to write, it was 2 options. 1, expulsion, or 2, I could write an apology letter to this teacher. She made up all this crazy stuff. I was late to class every day. I was disruptive. I literally was on time every day, sat in the middle of the road, and was probably one of the only football players actually taking notes and paying attention.
So she just lied.
Yeah.
Wow. Maybe she had a thing with football players. It's so sad that there's people like that out there. But that's social media to an extent now.
Yeah, it's people who are upset and bitter and
right.
want to be offended by something, and so they'll do anything to make themselves feel better. If I can put somebody down, if I can rip somebody apart, if I can find something to be offended about, and then away we go.
That's that old expression, right? Hurt people, hurt people. Yeah. She's a damaged lady, and she decided to take it out on him.
Took it out on the wrong person.
I bet you took it out on a lot of people that were the right person. Probably pretty effective with those tactics.
It's like, hey, lady, you're teaching a fucking food appreciation class.
What do you learn in food appreciation? Is it just appreciation of different culinary styles? What are you learning?
Couldn't tell you. Nothing stuck with me.
Except for attitude. Yeah, that's unfortunate, man. That's there's a lot of people like that. Some of them they ruin lives, and some of them they just give people fuel, and give people anger and determination to prove that person wrong.
Yeah, but the shit part is, like you said, for me, it made me just work that much harder because I'm another person that I can prove wrong.
Yeah.
But for people not as mentally tough or more easily offended or hurt by something like that, I mean, it's possible, like you said, that she could have been detrimental to other people. Why? Because you have some tiny position of power.
Yeah.
And you have some sort of vendetta against the world that you're teaching a food appreciation class?
Yeah, that's power. That's the big one, right? The fact that she has that ability. That is so intoxicating for people. And they have control over folks.
Talk about power, talk about the head of a homeowners association.
Homeowners association?
HOA.
Oh yeah.
The people that run those things. I was in a HOA years ago, and I was trying to get a fence built behind my house because there was a running trail behind it, and I like my privacy. And I went to this meeting, and the guy in front of me, poor guy, he had to paint 5 different colors on his garage of the color he wanted to paint his house, and I had to have people from the community come by and vote on it.
Oh my God!
And he had come by. This was the second month that he had came by, and this 80-year-old woman who has just an ounce of power in the community, who's running the HOA, goes, "I'm sorry, sir, you don't have no votes. You got to come back next month." This fucking guy just trying to paint his fucking house, and he's got it's 5 shades of between tan and brown. It's all the same goddamn color.
Oh God, that's hilarious. Yeah, I've seen people get very upset about that. In fact, this community that I lived in, there was a homeowners association dispute, and then somebody poisoned the dogs of people that were running the homeowners association. So like 2 different dogs got poisoned, and they never figured out who did it. They don't know what happened, but this person, whoever it was, killed people's dogs because they didn't like the way they were being treated by the homeowners association. Yeah, man, fucking. Some people need conflict in their life, you know, and that, you know, and being told what to do by someone in the homeowners association is so fucking. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's a strange thing, man. Power is a weird weapon people wield. You know, they really enjoy it. When you know you're the boss of an office building, or you're the person that gets to tell a student that they can't rewrite their paper. There's people that get off on that shit. It's the most intoxicating drug.
Yeah. There's some other ones that are pretty intoxicating.
There's other ones. Yeah, sometimes they mix them. Sometimes they're on one, or they're getting the natural one from telling you what to do. Yeah, it's awful. But again, there's always those stories, right? There's always those stories of people that try to hold something back and it doesn't work, and then you get to tell people about it.
It's great.
Yeah, but
I'm thankful for it.
Yeah, right. There's people in your life that their shitty attitude gives you fuel.
Yeah.
And it's a lesson to never behave that way. You know, not that you ever would, but it's like a real affirmation of that.
Yeah. It doesn't take a whole lot to show a little bit of kindness.
No, and it's great for you too. That's what people need to understand. They think that by being kind, you're just being good to that person at the detriment of yourself or at your own expense. But no, it's the opposite. It's actually selfish to be nice because it feels great.
Yeah.
To be kind and generous, it feels great. It's amazing. It's nice. Yes. Yeah. Nothing wrong with it. Yeah. So it's just people need to learn that. There's so many examples that they see that at least they think that this is what's happening, where this mean, shitty person who tells everybody what to do and is a dictator, that person gets ahead. So they think that they have to be like that. Yeah. That has always been the Hollywood way, right? That's like Ari Gold from Entourage. You succeed by telling everybody to fuck off and yell at everybody and kick them out. And I think there's a lot of people that like want to get to that place where they can do that to people. Where they have to listen. Everybody has to kiss my ass.
Well, that's what's glorified in TV shows and movies, right? Is that archetype of the don't give a fuck leader who gets everybody to do exactly what he wants them to do or she wants them to do. There's other ways of maybe living and doing things.
Yeah, there are, but not if you have shitty employees. Then there's that problem. There's people that don't want to listen, they're not good, and you have to crack the whip, and then I think over time it becomes easier to be that sort of shitty dictator than it is to have like this sort of balanced, nuanced approach to people and communicate with them and try to help them do better.
Can't just fire those people.
You should. Yeah, you should probably just fire those people. And you're gone. And then you get sued. You know what I mean? Yeah. In this day and age, people decide you single them out because of their sexual orientation or the way they look or what part of the world they're from. And so it's a strange time. It's a time of a lot of information, a lot of communication, but also a lot of chaos.
There's got to be a reset. I feel like there's got to be a rebalancing at some point.
I feel like it's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
How so?
I just think people are fed up. I think there's a large percentage of the population that realize that a lot of the behavior that you're seeing people exhibit and a lot of the chaos of this online mob culture, it's negative. It's not helpful, and maybe they've been through it or know someone has been through it, or maybe they even participated in it and they feel terrible. And they don't want it anymore.
I hope so for like comedy.
Yeah.
And what it's the attack on comedy. College campus safe spaces.
Yeah, that's where I worry about it. Because I remember I was talking years ago, like back 2014, 2015, we were watching these stories that are coming out of colleges and the way people are behaving. And just the rules of discourse, the way they were limiting the way people communicate about things. And I was saying that I think this is a real problem. People saying, well, why do you care about that? It's nothing to do with you. You know, you're a middle-aged comedian. This is not going to affect your life. I'm like, those guys are going to graduate. These people that have this attitude are going to graduate, and then they're going to infect corporations. Then it's going to spread. And that's exactly what happened. Yep. And, you know, I wasn't the only one that was thinking this either. There was a lot of people that were sort of sounding the alarm early on. You know, some of the funniest ones were Peter Boghossian, Helen Pluckrose, and James Lindsay. They put together these grievance studies, these fake studies, and one was homoerotic behavior and rape culture in dog parks. So they put together these fake, and they got awards for these studies. And one of them was fat bodybuilding. They put together a fat bodybuilding study, and these studies were peer reviewed, and they got applause for these things and praise. And then, you know, they all got in trouble when it turned out that these were fake studies, but they were trying to highlight a real problem with nonsense, ridiculous coddling and nonsense of terrible ideas, and that these ideologies were not objective, or they're not rational, and they were trying to express that, and they did it through humor, and people were very, very upset that they got used. And even then, I remember people saying, like, why do you care? Like, why do I care? This is gonna spread. I have children. They're gonna go to these schools. They're gonna learn this stuff. Like, this is not good.
And you think it's changing?
I think so. I don't think it's changing that much in colleges. In colleges, I think it's probably doubling down.
Yeah.
I think colleges are going to be that's the real breeding ground for those sort of mental diseases.
So what else has changed?
I don't know. No, I think.
Well, now they got their loans paid for it, so.
Yeah. Well, they only got $10,000 for it. It's fucking a weird gesture.
Well, they didn't have much money left after they sent all that money to Ukraine, so we got.
Yeah. And to hire 87,000 IRS agents. Yeah. That was one of the best things about the ad, where they were calling out for people that you might have to use lethal force. Like, since when does a fucking IRS agent shoot people? Like, aren't you just supposed to collect money? Like, why are you shooting people? Why is that in the job description? I don't know if you
there was maybe James can look it up so verifies this, but I believe a few years ago when there was an ammo shortage, there was conversation around the fact that, kind of bizarrely, the government, and I believe at the time, the IRS had bought up something like over 1 billion or a couple billion rounds of ammunition. I remember thinking that maybe it's TSA as well. I'm thinking, I feel like IRS is, what do they need ammunition for? It's kind of strange, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why the IRS would need ammunition. Unless there's some person who won't pay taxes and is pulled up. GOP wants answers on IRS's $700,000 ammo stockpile. $700,000 ammo stockpile as Dems okay $80 billion for agency enforcement. And this is in August of 2022.
I'm talking about like just 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Yeah, well, this is just a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of ammo. For what?
Isn't it a bunch of CPAs and
Yeah. They like to be strapped, just in case someone comes from the files. I would imagine there would be a situation where someone was a criminal and they were hiding their taxes, and the IRS agents were in danger because they were going to target the IRS agent that was investigating the case. I could imagine that, but I think that would be a rare thing, and you would involve traditional law enforcement.
That's what they're not law enforcement, IRS, right? Unless they're under that.
I mean, are they technically law enforcement? What's the technical definition of IRS? It's not law enforcement, is it? I guess so, right? Kind of.
Revenue service. Responsible for collecting taxes and administering their internal revenue code, the main body of the federal statutory tax law.
Strapped. Looking like John Wick showing up at your house looking for that extra $2,000. I mean, it all comes down to glorified revenue collectors. I mean, That's what, unfortunately, that's what they turned a lot of police officers into too. See all these, these speed traps and traffic stops and all this. They're glorified revenue collectors in some places. Yeah. How does that change? How does that get better? Well, I mean, anarchists, their solution is that, I mean, I saw Michael Malice actually talking about this the other day, and he was making some very good points. He was saying that there's no accountability when it comes to police, in that if they were a private institution, they would have accountability. Like, it was a private institution that was hired to take care of things. They would be able to say, hey, you've done a terrible job of enforcing crime. Look at all this crime. Like, what justifies your pay? You've done a terrible job of this. You confiscated resources from people and not returned them. You owe them that. That was one of the things they were doing in the South. I forget Florida. Yeah, it was a couple states were doing it, where they would pull you over, and say if you were on your way to go buy a car, and you had $25,000 in a bag, they would just confiscate that money, and you would have to prove, even if you had a job, like you say, look, I make $100,000 a year, I saved up 25 grand, I'm going to go buy this '69 Camaro. No. We take that money, and then you will have to prove that. So you have to wait in court, and then you have to somehow or another get a court order to give you that money back. And I think a large percentage of that money was never returned. And so we're doing it about your vehicle. Yes. Sell your vehicle. Yes. And you would have to prove all these things, that you weren't just. It's just cash. Like, meanwhile, you have the exact same amount in the bank. Oh, you're a good guy. You saved up your money. Probably frugal. Look at it. He's got all this money in the bank. Great. But how long before that happens? Like, why do you have all this money in the bank? Right. Well, you have $25,000 in the bank. Well, we're going to freeze that money until we investigate how you acquired it. I mean, all of these different draconian measures that they use to make their life easier and their life more convenient, and certainly enrich the coffers of these states and their budgets. That all would be eliminated if they were accountable, and if there was like some sort of a privatized version of the police. He was making a very interesting argument about it that I'd never really considered before. And I don't know if that's the solution, but something I don't think that's definitely not the solution. No, that's definitely not the solution. That's incentivizing people to create ways where people are doing something illegal. And that's what we found when you look into marijuana legalization. One of the biggest opponents of marijuana legalization was prison guard unions. Prison guard unions wanted no part of that, because that's going to have less people in prison, so there's going to be less jobs for prison guards, which is fucking wild. So you're basically using people as a battery to generate money. You're basically using human beings, and you're coming up with reasons to lock them up and put them in a cage, and that generates revenue for your company. And you're actively trying to make sure that laws stay in place that are unjust, because those laws, as they are now, are profitable for you. We were reading about this case of this guy who was selling pot to an undercover cop. He sold, on 4 different occasions, he sold pot to an undercover cop, and when you add up all the amount of pot that he sold, it was about an ounce. And they put him in jail for 15 years. And this is in Phoenix, which is where marijuana is now legal. So this guy is in jail in Phoenix for 15 years for selling something that you can now buy at a store.
Is he out now?
No, they denied his clemency because of his past record, which is, I think, is really ridiculous. Because if someone gets arrested and they do something and they get out, in my mind, they did their time. Yeah. This is a person who was punished for whatever crime. You can't apply this other crime that they've already been punished for to some new crime that, in my eyes, shouldn't be a crime at all. Especially
not violent crimes.
No, that's a large percentage of people that are in jail in this country. That's why the hypocrisy about the Brittany Griner situation was so egregious in this country, where Kamala Harris is talking about how horrible it is that Brittany Griner is in jail. You put me side in jail. Yeah. You did. Thousands of people in jail for marijuana. Yeah, it's crazy.
Hello?
Yeah, Yeah, and that was like the student loan debt forgiveness. That's great. But how come you guys didn't exonerate people that were in jail for marijuana when you said you were going to? They said that they were going to make marijuana federally legal. They said they were going to exonerate prisoners who are in jail for nonviolent drug offenses. That's what they said. None of that has happened.
You mean a politician said something they ran on and then didn't actually enact that said policy? That's crazy. It rarely happens. Occasionally it happens.
Yeah, it's just...
I'll tell you a good thing, and I don't really want to dwell too much on COVID stuff anymore, but one thing that really sticks with me when you're talking about things that the government could do to make people's lives better is, I'm 38. People that, around my age, I grew up with, went to high school with, college with, a lot of them are in that age group now where people are starting their own business. They've worked in corporate, maybe they figure out what exactly what they do. They start their own small business, and small business is the backbone of America, right? And how many thousands and thousands and thousands of small businesses closed and never opened again? Restaurants, bars, establishments like that, because of COVID, right? And safety. Started as 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and then went to lockdowns in places like Chico, California, where I'm from, where there were multiple stretches of time where there were 0 cases in the entire city of 80,000, or hardly any, less than 100. And you got small businesses in a small town, college town, that could not open their doors. And many of these establishments that I went to in high school and college and going back and visiting never opened again.
Yeah, some of my favorite restaurants in LA are gone. I think at one point in time, LA had lost 75% of its restaurants, which is insane.
It's insanity.
It's so hard to run a restaurant already.
And so what are they going to do for those people?
Yeah, nothing. Yeah, nothing. And no accountability. No accountability for these decisions that show there's no science.
But John Hobson comes out with a study talking about these lockdowns even more detriment than good.
Yeah.
And they're not the only, research place that's done these type of studies. But are they going to go back and reverse it? And they said, oh, tough shit, sorry. Because I think on one level, it's really one of two extremes, right? Either they really thought they were doing the right thing, or there's some coordinated plan. Maybe it's somewhere in the middle.
I don't think there's a coordinated plan. I think people were trying.
I'm just saying what people think, right?
Well, I have a friend, and his brother works for the COVID response, whatever it is, in California. And remember when they made a decision to close outdoor dining? And it turned out that one of the people that made that decision, the day they did it, went out and was dining outdoors.
I thought you meant Gavin Newsom going to Fraser 100.
Yeah, that was fun. This was a different one, but he had a statement. He was like, when they were talking, he said, well, what evidence is there that it's spread in outdoor dining? And she said, it's about optics. So this was a decision that this politician decided to make, a bureaucrat decided to make, to show that they're doing something. Because the numbers had gone up, so we're going to stop outdoor dining, which showed 0 transmission. There was no cases that were connected to outdoor dining. Especially in the early days of COVID, I think they've since revised that. With Omicron, apparently, is so contagious, and some of the new strains are more contagious, and they think there may be some instances of outdoor spread. But that was not the case.
Joe, they closed the beaches in California.
Yeah.
They closed the beaches where I live in California. Yeah, all along the coast.
Oh, yeah. Remember that one guy who was getting arrested by the Coast Guard because he was parasailing or something? No, he was surfing.
Yeah,
he was surfing. The Coast Guard. You're out there by yourself. Yeah. On a surfboard. They're supposed to be stopping terrorists.
Passing COVID to the dolphins or what? What are we doing?
It's so dumb. But, I hope there's lessons out of this because this is a new thing. We have never had this before. No one who was alive today had ever experienced a true pandemic. And I'm hoping that now that this is over, people are going to, recognize that some serious errors were made and not repeat those. That's the best you can get out of it. But as far as compensation for all those people that were forced to close their businesses and the door shutters and lost everything that they'd worked for decades They're just going to be angry.
So what do you tell those people?
Vote Republican. That's what a lot of them are going to do anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, more than 1 million people transferred over to the Republican Party. I think in 2021 alone. Find out what that number is. But, you know, you look at guys like Ron DeSantis who kept Florida open and had reasonable policies, including like what to do about COVID. You know, he mapped it out on television. He was, you know, widely criticized for this. Where he was saying, like, we need to protect our elders. We need to, you know, make sure that medical care is available for those people and everyone else. You should be able to do whatever you want to do. Protect your freedom.
Isn't that the point, though, I think, to learn from this is...
Yeah, here it is. More than 1 million voters switched to the GOP, raising alarms with Democrats. Political officials believe the poll across the U.S. is tens of thousands of suburban swing voters who helped fuel the Democratic Party's gains in recent years of becoming Republicans. More than 1 million voters across 43 states have switched to the Republican Party over the last year. And that's registered. That's registering as a... That means you could vote in the primary, right?
But Joe Biden's the most popular president in history.
Yeah, he's the best. I mean, there's no one better. He's best at talking. He's best at walking upstairs.
Good handshaker.
He's good at riding bikes. He shakes hands with folks. I mean,
He's not a fan of it.
you know, has he said anything about you?
One thing, he was in Wisconsin for a rally. So tell your quarterback to get vaccinated.
I remember there was some crisis that was going on. And I remember, it was a hurricane that was coming. They said the best thing you can do is get vaccinated.
That's all right.
It's like, what?
End of quote. I've seen him on the front row.
Yeah. End of sentence. Repeat the quote.
Yeah. Democrats got to think, how do we go from Obama to this?
Yeah. Well, even Obama said it. Like, Obama was famously quoted as saying, you know, Joe has an amazing capacity to fuck things up. I mean, he was a dumb guy when he was okay. He's never a bright guy. I mean, he's very well known as a liar. Like, there's all these videos of him lying about his education record, lying about so many different accomplishments that he's achieved in his life. He was always a bullshit artist. And not just a bullshit artist, but like a liar. Like a flat-out liar. I graduated at the top of my class. No, you didn't. How would you not know that? How do you not know you didn't graduate at the top of your class? You definitely didn't. You know, why are you saying that? Somebody hit you over the head and tell you that? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? And the fact that he was... You know, we used to have Joe Biden night at Stitch's Comedy Club in Boston because he got caught plagiarizing. So he got caught plagiarizing when he was running for president in 1988. So in 1988, we had Joe Biden night where, like, you would do my act and I would do your act. We would all plagiarize each other. It was for fun, just for comedians, and people would come by and watch.
That's wild.
That's how well known he was at being a liar.
That's what, 34 years ago?
Yeah. But you know what? They just, I think they counted on people's ability to ignore negative press and also the polarization in this country because people hated Donald Trump so bad that Trump represented an opposition that had to be stopped. And so this was an established Democrat. He'd been around for years and we could probably win with him. It turns out they were right.
But see, that's the problem with politics is you know, now it swings because, you know, you got Weekend at Bernie's up there is, you know, trying to read the prompter, and then some, you know, Republican steps up and is going to change the country and get us back to, you know, America first and whatever the hell slogan it's going to be, and then 4 years later it's going to swing back the other way. That's why I always say politics is a shame, you know?
It's definitely that. You always say that, you're right.
People are like, you're a right-wing, anti-vaxxer, flat earther, and I'm like, politics is fine.
Yeah.
Okay, left, right? I do like Obama, I like all of them. I do like him. He's very interesting guy.
Well, he's the best president in my lifetime, for sure. He was the most statesman-like, the most articulate. He was the most reasonable and measured. He just embodied, in my mind, what I would like to represent the United States. When the United States. Let's have this super educated, clear-minded, just really smooth talker. Seems together, very nice guy. Together. Plays basketball. See how good he is at basketball?
Yeah.
I mean,
He's a good golfer too.
Was he? Yeah.
I had one of the rounds of my life.
Yeah.
Exactly. I played good. I buried the first 2 holes.
Oh,
That was a highlight for sure.
That's nice.
Yeah. Cool story. So in 2010, we played the Washington Redskins at the time, and one of our receivers knew a Secret Service agent. He got us a White House tour. So we went to DC and got a tour, and Mr. President came back on that Saturday from actually around the golf, and they shuttered us into the side room. Hey, you can't see the president. You gotta, get out of the way. And he actually came. He heard we were there, and he came and met all of us in 2010, which is so cool. And then we played golf in 2016, which was his last year in office. And at the end of the round, he was like, "When are you guys getting back?" And I was with Mark Kelly, who's now the senator in Arizona. And we were like, "Oh, we just Ubered out here." He's like, "Yeah, ride back with me in the motorcade." I was like, "Yeah, sweet." So we ride back in the motorcade, which is a wild experience. Like 9 cars. One of them's like, got the, codes in it or something, I think. And
Oh boy.
we get back into the White House and we walk in, and Mr. President goes, "This is just like the first day we met." And I was like, how fucking cool is that? This dude, I met him 6 years ago on this same thing, like on a Saturday after a golf round. And he's like, "It's like the first time we met." Wow. Like, that's so cool. That's pretty cool. Just be like that president and aware. And then me and Mark Kelly, who flew the space shuttle 3 times. Before his brother spent a year in space, I think he spent the most time in space. Walked out of the front door of the White House onto Pennsylvania Avenue.
Wow.
That was a cool experience.
That's pretty dope. Yeah. Well, he was the best we had to offer in terms of like what represented. But still there was a lot of people that didn't appreciate him. He experienced a lot of racism. He experienced a lot of unjust hate. I remember when Fox News was criticizing him because he wore a tan suit.
Yeah,
His beautiful suit. It's got to be the wrong color.
It's got to be blue, and it's got to be a red tie or a blue tie, right? That's it. That's all you can do.
They're like the homeowners association of politics. Like, what the fuck is wrong with his suit? It's a nice suit.
You're not gonna make anybody happy, man.
No. Well, that's what
possible.
That's why no one wants that job.
Yeah.
Because no matter who you are, what you represent, someone's going to decide that you're evil. Someone's going to, even if they don't believe it, there's going to be some pundit, some radio politics personality that's going to talk all kinds of crazy shit about you and make up stories about you.
Well, like the last 10 years, it's really, don't you feel that both sides, the extremes have gotten farther apart? Like, I feel like for a while it was maybe the right had kind of been more extreme than the left, but I feel like now both sides, there's a real extreme wing to both sides, and there's even a greater divide between the 2 parties.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's in part due to the reaction of Trump. To Trump himself, the way he carries himself. I mean, he's he's that guy that got famous from saying you're fired. He got famous and he got all this press from, all these crazy statements that he would make. And they would give him all this press, and that's what helped get him elected. But it also just made people so angry. I remember we had an End of the World podcast that we did on 2016 during the election. So we did this live podcast from the Comedy Store. And I remember we went into the bar after it was all over, and we watched CNN. And we were watching like Jay Tapper and all these people like so depressed. Yeah. They were so angry and so just, it was so visibly obvious that these are not objective journalists that are just talking about this thing that happened, but they had a very clear mandate and they had a very clear role that they were playing, and that role was that we are the people that oppose this terrible thing that has just happened, where we have legally elected, because of people's opinions, this person who more than half the person, or more, at least the electoral college votes, more than half had decided should be president. So the people had chosen, and they were like, people were up. It was wild. It was wild to see because I was like, this is interesting because it's like, this is one of the clearest examples of, it's just, they're not objective. These are not journalists. These are not people that are just reporting on actual facts. They had to have this opinion, this dour face, and everyone was very upset. Very upset. Which, I mean, I understand it if you're not a journalist. I understand if you're just a person, and you were a person that thought Hillary Clinton should be president, and then you saw this kind of way, you're like, what the fuck? But you're not just a person, you're a fucking journalist. You know, and your job is to tell people what's happening.
But that's not journalism anymore. It's sensationalism. It's, you have 10 words on an ESPN front page to try and denote what a story is about to tell you. And how do I get the most clicks on this article just written?
Yeah.
I better make it the craziest fucking headlines possible.
Yeah.
Just because if you click on that and you're on the page for 1 second, that counts as a page view.
But what they didn't understand, and I think they recognize now that there's new leadership at CNN, was that diminishes
CNN
public's
Plus?
trust. CNN Plus doesn't exist. It was a great idea, but unfortunately they lost $300 million in 10 days, and so they quit the plug. So weird, because I thought it was going to take off.
Yeah.
I mean, who wouldn't want to pay for something that no one watches for free? What a fucking genius idea. I would like to have been in the meeting with those people and just sit down with those guys. Like, I know you and I don't see eye to eye on things, but unless you want to lose a lot of fucking money, this is a terrible idea. If you want to make CNN Plus free, and then
You should be a consultant.
build up advertising revenue, ultimately and eventually, yeah. But I think the people that are running CNN now are pretty wise. This is why they got rid of Brian Stelter and everybody else is on the chopping block, because they recognize like this is bad for their bottom line. You can't have people lose all faith and trust that you're objective. And the editorializing that they were doing is so piss poor. You have these dorks, these people without good social skills, and they're not interesting and they're not likable. And they're the ones that are telling you what you should think. That's crazy. People don't like that. And so CNN recognizes that now. And now they've started to, get rid of those people. And they want to put in old school objective journalists that are just talking about the facts. That's what CNN should be.
Well, they need Trump back. What else are they going to talk about?
Well, there's plenty of things to talk about. The problem is that was their business model.
That was.
You look at these independent people, when you look at like Breaking Points with Crystal and Sagar and Jimmy Dore and all these other people that have these independent political shows that are objective, they give their opinions. I mean, they certainly editorialize, but they're independent. Because we know they're independent. We know at least if I agree or disagree, I like or dislike, at least I know that that's coming from this person. When you would hear these other people talk, you'd say, like, you are giving you've been given a specific mandate, whether it's from the producers or the executives or whatever. Your organization has a very specific slant, and you're ignoring reality in order to push this slant. And then when people find out that they ignored reality, or they find out that this information is biased and that you've excluded stuff that's contrary to your opinion, then people lose trust in it, and then the ratings drop off radically. They built this fucking entire business, unfortunately, during the 2016 election, on talking about what an asshole Trump was. And they made that asshole president. I mean, it's a real argument that they made him president.
Backfire.
Oh, it's a terrible backfire. But that's what he's great at. He's great at using the media and manipulating them in that way and making them talk about it. Yeah, fake news. Have you seen Jamie Foxx's impression?
It's incredible.
Holy shit. Go to Jamie Foxx. I thought that fucking Shane Gillis had a good Trump impression. Yeah. Jamie Foxx is the most fucking talented guy that's ever lived.
I agree.
He's so goddamn
and
talented.
JT. Justin Timberlake's up there as well.
Yeah, but he can't do this. He can't do stand-up. Let me see.
He's a great person. He couldn't vote for me at the time. Now he can vote for me once he gets out. I love Snoop Double Cheek, great person.
So do you love Death Row Records?
I love Death Row. I love excuse me. Fake news. I love Death Row.
What's your favorite Death Row record?
All of them. Don't try to pin me down. Excuse me. Fake news.
It's getting better.
They're trying to give me the virus. I beat the virus. They trying to give me the virus. Look, who is they? I said, I beat the virus. Fuck yeah! He beat it! Trump, boy.
Goddamn, he's down.
He's down.
His fucking impressions are incredible.
Yeah.
But I think that, you know, that's part of the problem is that, like what he just said, with all the dummies, like, yeah! Finally, the dummies have a leader. Like he hit a very specific frequency. I'm not saying that all the people that supported Trump are dummies, but I'm saying that all the dummies supported Trump. There's this. That's not true either. There's a lot of dummies on the left.
Yeah.
But these dummies on the right, the ones that just like want a very fucking clean, specific 3-word narrative, and they, you know, keep America great again, you know, like that. Those people, boy, he found their fucking vibration. He's clung to it. Now that he realized, but now that we all realize that that's possible, they've woken up this, you know, group of people that were previously not politically active. It becomes an issue.
Yeah, I agree, but I don't believe that systems can change until you create alternate systems. Like, systems don't just change from the inside. You know, unless having a two-party system is one of the craziest fucking things ever. When you have how many people live in the States?
300, I think 30, right? 330 million?
And you can really only back one of two parties.
Yeah.
There's no third-party candidate independent's ever going to win.
The only one that had a chance was Ron Paul. If Ron Paul went independent, because Ross Perot did it. I mean, Ron Paul was a Republican, but I think that if you had like a guy like that was saying things that resonated with a large swath of people, and he decided to go independent. But Ross Perot did that. You know, when I was a kid, Ross Perot was running for president, and he took the election from Bush Sr. And that's how Clinton won. Because a lot of people that would have voted for Clinton, they were thinking that he made more sense. Because he took out an entire block of time on network television. That's how wealthy he was. He's like, NBC, I'm going to buy you out for an hour. And he just went on television and explained how the Federal Reserve worked and the tax codes work and all this. He's like, here's how you're getting fucked. And he did it on television. And that was terrifying to people. And they actually changed the standards for debates. They raised the amount of votes that you had to get to participate.
So you couldn't have a third party.
You could have a guy come in and fuck up their rigged game.
Yeah.
They have a rigged game. The rigged game is these enormous special interest groups. They put money into both candidates, which is wild. And they fund their campaigns, and they figure out who's going to win. And then when that person wins, then they get in there, and then they make sure that they have undue influence on all sorts of things that affect regular people in a negative way.
I don't think they care who wins as long as they get what they want.
That's the hustle. That's the old Bill Hicks joke.
And it's both sides.
Bill Hicks used to have the joke, well, I think the puppet on the left is more to my liking. Well, I support the puppet on the right. And they're like, hey, wait a minute. There's one guy holding both puppets.
Yeah.
Go to bed, America. We got you covered. And that's the reality of our political process. And the only way you're going to do that is to take money out of politics. And good fucking luck with that. That's one of those things. It's like, once you got herpes, you've got herpes. Like, you can take Valtrex, you can do whatever you got to do, but you've got herpes, kid. I hate to tell it to you, but this is what our country is. I mean, our political process has VD, you know, and I don't know how to get it out. I don't know how. I mean, look, 300 years ago, they started another country because they're like, look, where we're at is fucked. We're getting screwed over. Let's start this experiment in self-government that became the United States. And, you know, clearly by people that had an understanding of where human nature can go wrong. And they put all these checks and balances in place, and they separated powers, and they did it in a way that they hoped would be, you know, preparing this country for the future in a way that it would be for the people, by the people. And, you know, it was a good idea. It was a brilliant, amazing idea at the time. Unprecedented, nothing like it. And it spawned the greatest superpower the world's ever known. The most creative force the world has ever known. I mean, the influence that United States culture has had on the rest of the world is really like nothing else. I mean, it's fucking wild. If you think about the music that's come out of here, the comedy, the films, the sports, the shit that's come out of the United States is bananas. And it came out in many ways because of the freedom that people were given by the Constitution and the Bill of Rights.
Yeah, which doesn't exist in most countries anywhere close to it.
Well, that's unfortunately what a lot of people find out when they decide to go against the United States, and then they wind up getting arrested like Brittany Griner did in Russia, and you realize, oh, there's places that are fucking way worse. You don't get a fair trial. You don't get, and you get treated like a political pawn. Yeah. You know, and that's where we're at right now. But there's a lot of problems in this country. There's a lot of problems with any group of human beings, especially when those groups get enormous. There's no way you're going to have a group of 333 million people where everybody agrees on everything and everybody gets along great. It doesn't work that way. That's not how human beings are. People find conflict. There's people that create conflict. It benefits them. It's their business is conflict. So you're always going to have conflict.
Unless everybody takes mushrooms.
That would help a lot. That would help a lot. Isn't it funny that it sounds like a crazy thing to say, but that literally would fix the world. If more people had psychedelic trips and more people had an experience that dissolved their ego and more people had an understanding that community isn't just simply a bunch of people that live together, it's a bunch of people that care about each other, and that we could treat the world like a community. It could be done. It can be done in small groups of people, and it can be done in large groups of people. And again, you're not going to resolve all conflict. You're always going to have conflict.
No chance.
But at least we would have a shift in the way people view each other and think about things.
Yeah, I couldn't agree anymore. But
how much psychedelic use is in the NFL? How many guys are using psychedelics?
I don't know. I mean, I talked recently about my own ayahuasca journey, and
everybody has an ayahuasca journey, by the way. It's always a journey.
Yeah.
I'm on an ayahuasca journey.
What do you call it? Ceremony?
No, that's even worse. Yeah, plant medicine is where it gets squirrely.
But you've done ayahuasca?
No, I'm not. I've only done DMT.
Okay.
I've done DMT, I've done mushrooms, I've done LSD, I've done MDMA. Is that it? I think that's it. No, I've done salvia, and I think that's it. By far the most powerful was DMT. By far. It was bizarrely powerful. Where like, I feel like there was me, and then there's me after DMT, like a totally different person.
I feel the same way about me and then me after ayahuasca. But since I talked about it on Aubrey's podcast, it's been really interesting to see the people reaching out, like across the league. And there's been a lot of people outside the league and you know, entertainers, sports people, you know, just friends from the past, people to work at the facility, you know, just the 9-to-5 people, all interested in you know, plant medicine. It's been really interesting. I think there's a hunger for what I experienced, what you talked about in mushrooms, is this like death of the ego.
Yeah.
This like realization that we're all connected.
Yeah.
This greater sense of like what community is. And I don't know if you've experienced it in your DMT journeys and mushrooms, but when you dissolve the ego, the amount of love that you can give back to yourself and then other people, it takes away for me so much judgment of myself and others, so much separation between myself and others. The greater sense of connection was overwhelming when I kind of came out of that and got back to like reality or whatever. I was like, oh shit, like, now here's the integration. Like,
yeah,
here's me in a different form. You know, here's my reflection that I see of myself and you.
Yeah,
and we're all fucking connected in such a deeper way. And it's just, you know, doing a plant that's been used for generations, you know, in the Amazon jungles. And I got the same feeling on mushrooms as well. I mean, it was just an incredible connection to nature and life and all sentient beings and all plants and fungi and just feel like of my previous self, I feel like that, you know, the anger and bitterness and resentment and negativity, I'd kind of like stand or walk around. It wasn't like a super high level, but I felt like coming out of those experiences, it's like, like kindness matters.
Yeah, it matters a lot. Matters a lot.
Like being present with people, having conversations. Like, putting your fucking technology away and like connecting with somebody and like seeing them, because I think on a deep level we all just want to be seen and understood,
Yes.
you know, and that's why
sure.
social media is such a platform, because everybody's fucking look at me.
Yeah.
This is my opinion.
Yeah.
Right, and it fucking matters.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I get it. I see it for sure. But let's just realize we're all the same.
The
right?
thing about the social media interactions, though, is that it happens in isolation. Like, you're alone and you're putting something out there, and then the other people are alone and they're receiving it. And that's why they can be so cruel and shitty, is because they're not looking at you and
Yeah.
seeing you. Like, most of the things that people say on social media, they would never say to someone's face. Even if they were bigger and stronger than that person, they wouldn't say it, because it feels terrible to say shitty things to people. It's an interesting thing that happens when you recognize that a lot of the way we react with each other is based on insecurity. We put up these armored walls between us and the rest of the world, and you have this thought that, you know, fuck everybody and everybody's fucking me over and fuck them, and then you do something like DMT or mushrooms or ayahuasca, and you recognize, oh, that's nonsense. Like, that, not only is that nonsense, that's bad for me. It's bad for everyone. It's bad for everyone I come in contact with. It's unnecessary. And then you realize the source of it all is just fear. It's just fear and insecurity.
Yeah.
And that was so profound to me. Like, this recognition of what the problems that the ego presents, and that these problems, this ego, first of all, was not designed to live in a society like this. Our bodies were not designed to live in these neighborhoods of millions and millions of people. This is not normal, and we don't know how to deal with that, and so we come up with more walls and more insecurity and more defensiveness, and that this is bad for everyone. And the solution to that is to expose people to these things and allow them to recognize the flaws and the patterns of behavior that they've been following their whole life. But the more people that get exposed to that, the more that's going to be a normal narrative, and that people are going to understand that you're just a person. You're not a bad person. You might have made bad choices, but you're just a person. We're all human beings. See people in jail for violent crimes. They're just people. They're people that got on terrible paths, and they don't realize that we're all connected.
Yeah, I wish that there was a way where more people could be exposed to it, because I really think it would change perspective 100%. Go ahead.
It's changed radically in my lifetime.
Yeah.
It's changed radically.
Because you've been
just
talking
over-
about this for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It changed radically over the last couple of decades that I've been exposed to it. I think the first time I did DMT was early 2000s. And I remember, well, the first time I did mushrooms was early 2000s as well. But mushrooms were amazing, and it was beautiful. But DMT, I always
We're
describe
gonna
as
pause here for a
mushrooms times a
second.
million plus aliens. It was the encounter of entities
Gotta do some
that
admin
was
shit
so
here.
mind blowing. That this thing that, like, there might be some sort of disembodied consciousness that exists in some realm that you can access within 15 seconds. That there's just the thought that that's a real thing. You know, ayahuasca, as opposed to DMT, ayahuasca is, for people who don't know what we're talking about, is a oral version of DMT. DMT is broken down in the gut by something called monoamine oxidase, and what ayahuasca is one plant that contains dimethyltryptamine and another plant that contains an MAO inhibitor, harmine, and you combine the two of those together, and it produces this orally active version of DMT that's a much longer experience, but typically is not as intense as the smoked DMT. When you smoke it, it's like right into your bloodstream.
And it's short though, right?
Yeah.
Shorter.
But you just do it again afterwards. It's just, I mean, you come out of it in like 15 or 20 minutes and you want to go right back in. And it's so profound, and it changes everything. It changes everything. It changes how you think of reality. It changes your way, the way you interface with other people. It changes how you think about yourself. You know, all your stupid ideas of who you are and all your ego and nonsense, it all just gets blown to bits. And I think
feel
that's
like
the purpose of it.
matters less, right? All
Yeah.
those insecurities and fears and what doesn't mean you give less fucks about life. I think it actually just changes what you give a fuck about.
Yeah.
Connecting and loving people and spreading positivity and kindness.
But there's churches that use ayahuasca. You know, I had Dr. Rick Strassman on the podcast recently, and he talked about these churches that have an exemption by the Supreme Court in order to use it for religious purposes. And there's one of them that is like, there's two different ones. Do you remember the names of them, Jamie? There's two different churches. One of them seems a lot more fun. They sing songs and they have these ecstatic dances, and so they do their DMT. But they're both Christian-based churches.
Really?
Yeah, and they one of them is from Brazil, I believe. They might be both from Brazil, which obviously has a long history of use of psychedelic medicines. But that these people have these incredible communities that they've based around the entire flock participating in these psychedelic rituals. Like, that's really what a church probably started out as. If you read The Sacred Mushroom and the Cross, which is John Marco Allegro's book.
I was just talking to a buddy actually last night about this book.
It's an amazing book that I believe, I'm not sure if this is true, but let's find out. I believe it was bought out by the Catholic Church. I have 2 copies of the original printing of The Sacred Mushroom and the Cross, and it's a fucking phenomenal book. Because it's written by this guy, John Marco Allegro, who's a biblical scholar and a linguist, and he was also an ordained minister.
Yeah.
But through studying religion, he became agnostic. And he was like, I think these are all, they share these stories, like what's the root of these stories? So he was hired to decipher the Dead Sea Scrolls. And for 14 years, they painstakingly deciphered this, which I believe was the first version of the Bible that they encountered that was in Aramaic. And this was, they found these scrolls in Qumran, which is in Israel, where they found these caves, and inside these caves they found these ceramic pots that had these scrolls in them. And it was so painstaking that they had to do DNA samples on the scrolls, because these scrolls are made in animal skins. That's how old they are. And they took these scrolls and they had to match up the DNA with a specific cow that was on each, so they knew that these strands were from this one cow. So let's put all these together and figure out how they piece together. Wow. So they do all this, and then they analyze the language, and then they decipher it. His interpretation, after 14 years of study, was that the entire Christian religion was a giant misunderstanding. That the original version of it was all about fertility cults and psychedelic mushrooms. And particularly in his eye, a lot of it was about the Amanita muscaria, which is a very misunderstood and very confusing mushroom, because I've done that before too. It didn't really do much. But they think that it might have been seasonal. They think it might have varied genetically and geographically, and that it had different compounds in it in different places. But this is the mushroom that's connected to Santa Claus.
Yeah.
This is the mushroom that looks like Santa Claus. It's a red mushroom with white dots on it, and the original Santa Claus,
which is a great myth.
Yeah. It's wild, because the original Santa Claus, the myth was that Santa Claus was a shaman, and he would come down through the chimney.
The reindeer piss.
And they would, it's all of it is connected, because the reindeer eat Amanita muscaria mushrooms, and then they would actually like knock people over trying to get to their piss, because they would smell the Amanita muscaria in their piss. And these people that did this ritual, they would eat the Amanita muscaria and then they would drink their own piss, because the psychedelic compounds were in the piss, which is how they figured that out. But this book was, is that true? It was, I think the Catholic Church bought it out, and then it was republished, I believe, about a decade ago.
It was definitely republished. You can't find anything since it was bought out. They banned it, and then it was banned by the publisher, and the guy was fired from his job, but I can't see anything about that.
He also he wrote a second book that was widely available because of that, and that is called Psychedelic Mushrooms and the Christian Myth. Something about the Christian myth. What is the other John Marco Allegro book? He had 2 books. Something in the Christian myth. Dead Sea Scrolls of the Christian myth. Yeah. And that was his interpretation. Now this is a convoluted, complicated argument, because you really have to understand ancient languages, you have to be able to decipher them and read them and know the etymology of words. But he traced back the word Christ to an ancient Sumerian word that was a mushroom covered in God's semen. And so the idea was that when it rained, things would grow out of the ground. So this was God. I mean, you have to realize that we're talking about people that lived thousands and thousands of years ago. And these people, fertility was very important. Having children was very important. There was never this concept of like there's too many people. There was like everyone's dying. It was very easy to lose a child. Like the child mortality was very high. Infant mortality was very high. It was hard to stay alive. There was very little medicine. No one understood anything. So these people had this idea that when it rained, it was God giving life to the world, and that rain was God's semen. And if you've ever been in a place that has mushrooms, when it rains, you wake up in the morning and there's mushrooms everywhere. Mushrooms that weren't
Helps
there
keep the
before.
slop
They
in.
grow so quickly. A mushroom as big as this coffee cup could appear overnight, which is really crazy. So these people would rain, and then in the morning they would find these mushrooms and they would eat them, and they would fucking trip balls. Right? Could you imagine being one of the first people that discovered psychedelic mushrooms? And you're eating them, and then they wanted to hide these stories from the conquering Romans and from all these other empires that were invading them, and so they hid them in allegories and myths. And this was his take on the Bible, is that all these stories were translated over and over again from, Aramaic and ancient Hebrew to Latin and Greek and English, and then so much was lost in the translation.
That doesn't really fly very well in the Christian church of today, I don't think.
Well, it does if you go to that one that's from Brazil that takes psychedelics. They're probably like, yeah, that's exactly what it is.
I was talking to a teammate of mine last night about that, and never heard of it. And I was like, oh, that's
Hardcore Christian.
sounds kind of crazy to me.
Yeah, it does. Well, at the very least, you have to understand that if the Bible is the Word of God, it has been interpreted by people. Right? And people are biased, and people, they have reasons to withhold information or to empower, control. Sure. I mean, Martin Luther was almost killed because he translated the Bible into a phonetic language that people could read and understand, and he wanted people to interpret the Bible themselves. They wanted to kill him. It was only because of his political connections that he stayed alive.
Knowledge is power.
Yeah. Well, especially back then. Yeah. Jesus Christ. I mean, if you were a priest back then, you were a rock star. I mean, that was originally...
Most people couldn't read.
Yes, exactly. And so they had to rely on the other people to tell them what God wanted.
God forbid you make things for people to understand.
God forbid. Perfect choice of words. Yeah. When did you first have... What was your first psychedelic experience?
I had mushrooms years ago out in nature on the beach, and had this magical experience where I felt like I merged with the ocean. Anything outside of like the straight and narrow was a major sin, and I know that, But for me, being a little rebellious, like I'm always like, this feels kind of fun now, like some of these things people are doing. Hippies seem like they had a pretty good time doing a bunch of LSD and stuff. It seems pretty cool, right?
And you know how many people died from mushrooms?
Thousands?
0. I mean, someone probably did mushrooms and thought they could fly. That was another Bill Hicks bit.
Yeah.
He was like, tragedy, young man on acid, thought he could fly, jumped off a roof.
Well, how many people
What a
believe on
tragedy.
marijuana?
0. Crazy. Isn't that crazy? But again, I'm sure people have lost their minds. I actually had Alex Berenson on the podcast yesterday, who wrote a book called Tell Your Children. He was on to talk about COVID, and he actually got reinstated by Twitter.
Did he really?
Yes. Everything he said turned out to be true.
Yeah.
All the things that he was saying, the things they banned him for.
Are those other guys back on?
I don't know if he got banned.
Wasn't Peter McCullough, wasn't he banned?
I do not know if he was banned. Was he banned? I do not know. I believe Robert Malone is still on.
He's still on?
Maybe he's banned. He might have banned them. They might have banned them all. Look, they were banning people for contributing to vaccine hesitancy. I mean, they were taking this hard-line stance because they thought they were right. A lot of they didn't know, and this is a big part of it. It's not like this is vast conspiracy by these people. A lot of these people were ideologically captured. They really thought that they were doing the right thing, that this was the good thing to do. They just were incorrect. and they had these assertions, they had these facts, they had this data that they were getting from the government, they had this data they were getting from Fauci and the NIH and the CDC, and they thought they were doing the right thing, and that's why they did these things.
But I think I stole a line from either yourself or somebody out on that I said at one point. Science that can't be questioned isn't good science. It's propaganda. Right. And that was my problem with the whole thing is science is propagated by peer review.
Yeah.
And you have an idea, and then give it to your colleagues or a study group or an institution, and then having them review it.
Yeah.
And figure out did your shit make any sense, or there's some holes in it.
Yeah.
Right? But there wasn't any questioning of the information that was put out. It wasn't allowed. There was questioning, but it wasn't allowed.
Yeah.
You're automatically put into anti-vaxxer, flat earth, crazy, right-wing conspiracy theorists.
That's what I said when I made that video to Neil Young, when Neil Young was getting all his music removed from Spotify because I was promoting misinformation. I said, what you say is misinformation today is not going to be misinformation in the future. You have to understand that. And I was saying how they were saying it was misinformation. Well, the things that you were getting kicked off of social media platforms initially, you were saying that masks don't work, or saying that the vaccine won't stop transmission, or by saying that the virus came from a lab. All those things would get you kicked off of social media initially. Those have all been proven to be true. Not only, well, not the virus coming from a lab. That's just, most people believe it to be true. So it's like a large swath of the scientific community is behind that now, and including Newsweek. It was on the cover of Newsweek, this lab leak theory, which is not, I mean, it's the most plausible scenario. There's not an animal host. They haven't shown that there's an animal host that could give it to people. That's not propaganda, that's not fake, that's not pseudoscience. This is just what they know. All those things we get you kicked off social media, now they're widely understood to be true. So this is one of the things that I said when I made that video, that these people that you're talking about, one of them, Dr. Robert Malone, he holds 9 patents for the creation of mRNA vaccine technology. He was a part of the creation of mRNA vaccines. He took the mRNA vaccine and had a horrible reaction and almost died. And then you got Peter McCullough. Peter McCullough is the most published physician in history in his field. This is a guy with rock-solid credentials who initially was telling people to take the vaccine. And then he was experiencing all of these patients that were coming in with these diseases and these illnesses that they'd acquired, he believed, from the vaccine. And there was no ability to discuss this and no ability to ascertain if that was the fact. You had to follow a very specific narrative. That's not science. No. It's propaganda. One of the things that we learned from John Abramson, who came here, he was talking to us about he was a doctor who had worked to litigate against pharmaceutical companies when they had produced that. He was part of the Vioxx thing and some other medications. He said that when a pharmaceutical company creates a product and they do studies, when someone peer reviews the data, they don't peer review the raw data. They peer review the studies that the pharmaceutical companies has given, which is fucking crazy. That is so crazy. That's like saying, if you're guilty of something, and you say, well, let me give you the evidence that I have. You know, my evidence that I've reviewed myself, and this is why I feel like I'm innocent. I'm going to show you my evidence. And the cops be like, fuck you. Let me see your phone. Did you text the drug dealer? Let me see, did you plot a murder? Let me see your fucking email.
Is it as crazy as like the FDA getting 51% of their budget from the pharmaceutical company fees?
That's pretty crazy.
You can fact check me on that, but I believe that's.
Is that true? Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, the companies
basically paying to get their product approved.
Well, how about the CDC stopping the distribution of COVID vaccine booster data for people 18 to 49 because they said it would contribute to vaccine hesitancy?
How about Pfizer asking to wait 75 years to release their data, and then 55 years?
That's wild. Like, let's wait until after we're dead, just for the compliance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my thing is like, at a bare minimum, it should just make you pause.
Yeah,
You know, even you say, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, I'm not any of these things. A rational, to me, and this is an opinion, a rational thinking human would just be like, hold on a second. This is kind of fucking weird.
When it comes to pharmaceutical companies, it's like that old story of the scorpion and the frog. You know, the scorpion hitches a ride with the frog, and the frog's like, hey man, don't sting me, because if you sting me, we're going to drown. And the scorpion stings him. And the frog's like, what the fuck? And the scorpion says, hey, it's my nature. That's their fucking nature. I mean, this is what they've always done. If you expect them to make some moral right-angle turn towards being just completely selfless and not concerned at all about profits and only looking for the great of humanity, well, you're looking at the wrong people. That's not what they do. What they do is they have a responsibility. They have a responsibility to the corporate management, and that responsibility is to make the most amount of money possible. And they're going to do that. And they're going to do it by crook or by crook. They're going to weasel. They're going to hide data. They're going to manipulate data. And they've been accused of that, rightly so, all through this whole thing.
But they have billions to spend. They spend billions on them.
Brought to you by Pfizer. Anderson Cooper. Brought to you by Pfizer. Yeah, it's so obvious, it's so wild, and if you discuss it amongst many people that have like a shallow understanding of this topic, they'll immediately roll their eyes and say, oh, look at Aaron, this crazy fucking hippie asshole football player thinks he's gonna fucking educate me. Well, I watch MSNBC and I'm the data. Keith Olbermann says you're an asshole. It's fucking amazing. It's amazing. You know, I've had some people that also were very pro-vaccine, very anti all these different things, and then got really badly sick and were very conflicted and didn't know what to do. They got really bad. I know people that got really badly sick from COVID post-vaccinated, and I know some people that got really badly sick from the vaccine itself, and they were very conflicted. And some of them just kept their mouth shut and stopped talking. And some of them even publicly said I would still take it again. I think overall the good is good. I mean, the heart's fucked now, but you know, better for everybody. And it's one of those things. If you say publicly, you're getting a certain amount of love. It's like a virtue signal that I was willing to.
There's so much of that. I mean, put one mask on, two masks on.
Sure.
You know, I'm doing my part. Yeah. Look, it's still kind of a free country, so you can do whatever the hell you want.
Kind of.
Yeah.
A lot freer here. A lot freer in Texas.
Yeah.
The difference between Texas and California was so stark that when I came out here with my kids in 2020, they're like, let's move here immediately. Like just seeing people like going out to restaurants and seeing people on the lake. Like in California, the beaches were fucking illegal to go to.
Yeah.
And here we're on a lake and people are drinking and fucking playing Garth Brooks music and jumping in the water. My kids were so confused. They're like, what is happening here? Like, why is this so different? And this is Austin, which is very progressive and very liberal. You go to the rest of Texas, they pretend that COVID fucking didn't exist at all.
South in general.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and you know, that's not good either, because it is a real fucking disease. And if you're not healthy and you're not covered, you can get fucked up by it.
I agree 100%. But what I was saying, or trying to say, was why is nothing else being talked about as far as ways of combating this disease, like eating better, like exercising, like vitamin D deficiency?
Well, even monoclonal antibodies, you can suppress monoclonal antibodies, which is wild.
They held on to, what, 500 million of them or something crazy? Something
Like
crazy.
that. All of it was bad. All of it was bad. And all of it is a lesson for people in the future that if something else happens again, to be more skeptical and to understand the influences that are behind these decisions that politicians and even, quote unquote health experts make. They're being influenced by things other than just data. And that's very important for people to understand. That there's an enormous amount of money that's being spread around here. People have gotten obscenely wealthy because of this pandemic. And they've done so because they promoted a very specific narrative that they knew was going to be profitable for them, even if it was detrimental for people, even if it removed people's ability to choose what to do and not to do, even if there's people that would not be adverse adversely affected by that virus, statistically, because of their health, their age, they didn't give a fuck. You want to play football? Take this fucking thing. And I want you to do it publicly so that I can get more money out of those other people that are thinking about it and they're on the fence.
Yeah, and then we're going to virtue signal to say, look how righteous our league is. We have 95% compliance
Yes.
with the vaccine. And if you don't, we're going to send a stooge to your team to show you graphs of your vaccination percentage of your team compared to the rest of the league, which actually happened.
Really?
Yeah.
Who was the stooge like?
I'm off the floor.
Did you?
See, again, that's why people are like, no one knew your vaccination status, you lied to your teammates. No. Day 3 of training camp, they sent this stooge in, and he showed these slides about what your vaccination percentage was in your team, where you compare to the rest of the league. And I started asking him questions about liability. Well, I'm not a lawyer. Okay, cool. But you're in here talking about all these different things, and you don't talk about anybody's personal health issues. There's 0 exemptions. You took out religious exemptions. You took out PEG exemptions. You took out anybody's ability to have. No, I don't want to do this. Yeah. Well, it's not only going to affect your day-to-day status on the team, but your ability to get a job, your ability to keep a job, your ability to get a tryout if you get cut from this team. Because you want to put a percentage above 90% of your team where you guys can have some sort of like special virtue, like look how amazing we are, we're above the 90% threshold.
And then
they scared teams to say, if you had an outbreak caused by a non-vaccinated player, you not only forfeit that game if you had enough players out, but you wouldn't get paid for that game. And here I am showing up to training camp the first day, and we got 5 people who work for the organization out with COVID all fully vaccinated. And I got COVID from a fully vaccinated individual who only got vaxxed to keep his potential of being a part of the NFL.
how many people do you know that had vaccine injuries?
A few.
How bad?
Heart issues. And then like bizarre episodes that took him to the hospital. As little as like weird eye issues, skin rashes, no COVID toe, but a bunch of other stuff.
What was COVID toe? Didn't they try to accuse you of having COVID? You hurt your foot?
I joked on my weekly show, on the Pat McAfee show, that I got, well, not joke, but I'd gotten hurt. I hurt myself when I had COVID, working out around my house. And because I had to be literally locked away for 10 days. And they joked about how it was an injury, a COVID toe injury. And in the Wall Street Journal, in their journalistic integrity, wrote this article about how I had lesions on my feet. That's what my injury was. That was caused by COVID. And then I showed my toe in an interview when I came back to work. And it started this whole thing. And
So what was the extent of the injury?
I broke my toe.
Just a normal injury?
Yeah, fracture.
And the Washington Post, did they contact you at all?
Wall Street Journal.
Oh, excuse me, Wall Street Journal.
I
Did
asked
they
for
contact
the,
you?
no, I mean, no, of course not. I asked for the guy's information and I had a phone conversation.
Really?
Yeah.
How'd that go?
It was very cordial.
Did you ask him why?
100%. Yeah. I mean, I had my own assumptions that, he was obviously trying to slam me because I was the flavor of the week and I was an easy target. But I said, have you ever watched me on the Pat McAfee show? So do you understand my relationship with Pat and AJ, who's my best friend on the show, and the jokes that we have and the lightheartedness? I said, did you watch the episode at all? Because if you did, you would know that they were making a joke about how I hurt my toe when I had COVID. I said, and also, sidebar, every, I'm making an assumption, but I'm assuming this is probably true, just about every beat writer that works for that covers the Packers, right, and national media that watch that show each week because they write stories about it, not one writer wrote anything about COVID toe. No one fucking, was was like, oh, let me look into what COVID-2 is, and maybe I can, scoop this first and write an article about it. I said, no one wrote about it. I said, do you think you were like writing some, groundbreaking, breaking news story by saying COVID-2? No, you're trying to slam it. I said, I just want you to admit that. You didn't watch the show. I said, and you're going, no. I watched the whole episode. I said, have you seen any other episodes? I said, do you understand the rapport I have with these guys? Do you understand what humor is?
Yeah.
Sarcasm? So I think overall it's a cordial. I mean, he took my call.
Probably thought he was going to get another story out of it. What was his reason for pushing false information?
He thought he was doing justice to all the thousands of people affected by COVID-2.
What is
No one had ever heard of COVID-2 until that article came out.
Yeah, what is COVID? Is that a real thing?
Supposedly it's involves some sort of lesions on your feet.
But you never said you had lesions on your feet. So why did he publish that?
Because it was the flavor of the week.
But did you ask him? Why did you publish that?
Yeah.
What did he say?
He thought he was reporting on a legitimate, medical affliction.
Sure. Did he publish any stories about people with vaccination? Those are legitimate medical afflictions. Should probably look into that.
There's not enough information on papers.
Well, it's not just that, right? It's like there's no liability. That's the real problem. Like, it doesn't matter.
That goes back to the 80s.
Yeah. Well, with this stuff, it was specific. With this particular medication, this particular vaccine, it was very specific that they were going to exempt them from any liability because of this emergency use authorization.
Which is only granted in these states.
Yeah.
If there's no other therapeutic.
Exactly. Which is why they were so vehement in their opposition to anything else. Yeah. It's wild.
But I feel like that's not, like you saying that, me saying that last year, like that's conspiracy, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of things.
I mean, I think there's a greater, at least percentage of the population that can go, okay, that's reality.
Yeah.
It was FDA approved, right? But that actual vaccine didn't come out, is that true?
Well, when Jen Psaki said these vaccines are approved by the FDA, which is the gold standard, that was a lie. They weren't approved. This was not true. They had an emergency use authorization. They weren't approved. But she was a propagandist. I mean, when she's working for the White House, she's this person that, answers questions, and most of it, the hard questions are all by Peter Doocy of Fox News. He was like the only guy who was like pushing back against her, and she just fucking flat out lied on not just one occasion, multiple occasions. I mean, maybe they had a narrative that they told her, maybe these are talking points, maybe that's her job. But it's a weird job in the beginning, right? To begin with, because it's a job where you're not even asking the president, you're asking this White House press secretary. So there's a person, and the only one that was good at the girl, McEnany, what's her name? Kayleigh McEnany. The one who worked for Trump, that lady was a fucking assassin. That lady had like binders with like footnotes, and they would say some shit. That's interesting because actually CNN said this, and then she would like quote it back to them, stuff it in their face. That lady's the best ever at that job. She's the fucking Michael Jordan of White House press secretaries. She's a fucking wizard. She was great at it. Unfortunately, she was working for Trump, so she didn't get any of the credit she deserved for being so good at that.
Now they just read it out of the binder. They don't even.
Yeah. Now they just fucking lie. You see the one lady that was on with Don Lemon? Don Lemon, who's chief propagandist for the fucking CNN. She's on with him, and he's saying, do you think that Joe Biden is too old to run in 2024? She's like, why are we even asking this? I can't even keep up with him. That's what she said. I can't keep up with him. Which I said, like, well, you should go to a doctor because you've been fucking poisoned.
Yeah.
If you can't keep up with that guy, there's a real problem. He's dying in front of our eyes. I mean, if he dropped dead tonight, no one would be shocked.
They can't. I mean, they can't put him back up, can they?
Yes. Yeah, they can. It depends on what kind of medications they get in between now and then. Whatever the fuck they gave him for that second debate, that's a good mixture. Yeah. I don't know if he can maintain that mixture, but I have a feeling that every cell in his body is like, like re-entering orbit in the space shuttle. Like, fucking keep it together.
So let's live in that world for just a second. What would... So let's think about it, because I've thought about this before, because I've thought about, like, man, he was pretty, like, you know,
On the ball.
What could they possibly have given him?
Adderall for sure.
Yeah.
If I was gonna do it, what I would give him was Adderall. I would give him testosterone. I would have him on testosterone, period, anyway, because he's that old. I mean, I would have him on, you know, peptides, human growth hormones, Orleans, his body produces more growth hormone. I would have him on all sorts of nootropics. I would have him on Alpha Brain. I would have him on every fucking thing that's available, Neurogum. I would give everything that you can to enhance his memory, acetylcholine, all these different things that we know through peer-reviewed data, or that actually do help your memory.
Right.
And then I would give him some sort of stimulant. I would give him something that's maintainable, something where he's not like out of his skin, going crazy, and he'd probably practice. Probably practice with low doses, and I know they had practice debates, and so he had his talking points dialed in, and I would even give him an earpiece. I'd give him something where we could give him data. Tell him this and tell him that. You don't say this, and here's how you respond to that. But I don't even know if that would be good, because sometimes when people have things in their ear, it confuses them. It's hard to get used to. Like having people talk. Have you ever had someone talk in your ear while you're talking?
Yeah, it's difficult.
Very hard. I've had bad producers on shows, and in the middle of a conversation, they're talking in your ear. Yeah, that's not that bad, because that's like easy to ignore. But when they start
about this.
yes, that's where it's hard. You know, they start giving you. Yeah, I had one time I was interviewing someone for the OC. I took it out of my ear. I'm like, shut the fuck up. Like, you're talking while I'm talking, you idiot. Like, don't do that. You're ruining everything. Like, but they don't understand that. They don't understand that role. They just want you to be a little robot for them. Just do what you need to do. But when you're talking to someone, you're taking into account what they're saying. You're formulating your next question. You're listening. You're trying to interact with this person. You can't. Also,
talk and listen to what the response is, and also listen to what you're trying to tell.
No, you're gonna get better at your job. You shut the fuck up. That's what you need to do. Let me do it.
UFC. How about that Usman?
Crazy. That's the greatest come from behind head kick knockout ever.
It was over.
Usman
was dominating the last.
I watched it again today. I watched it in the gym today and looking out. I was like, fuck, it's crazy. And we always knew Leon was really technical, really good. But I just assumed that the battle was lost. It just seemed
First round, he was great.
He took him down for the first time. Well, Colby Covington should have gotten credit for a takedown in the second fight. He did take Usman down. Usman's knees went to the ground, and Daniel Cormier was angry that it wasn't registered as a takedown. He goes, that's two. And you're talking to Daniel Cormier, who's an Olympic wrestler. That's the expert. That's who you should be going to when you decide whether or not something's a takedown. So I think they erroneously credited that the first time that Kamaru Usman's ever been taken down in the UFC. It was the second time, but it was the most significant, because not only did he take him down, he took him down, he mounted him, and then he took his back, and he was threatening with a rear naked choke. Big. But then Kamaru, as the champion he is, took over, and he won most of the remaining rounds, and it looked like it was, 3 rounds to 1.
It almost looked like Edwards had kind of resigned to the fact that he was going to lose on the decision.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people were saying. Dean Thomas, actually, who's the guy we go into in between rounds, who's an expert coach, he said he's broken. You can see how he wasn't looking his coaches in the eye, and he looked dejected. He goes, this is what it looks like when you're mentally broken. And then he went out there and case with that history of the sport. It was so perfect too. It's so textbook. But that's the thing about Leon. He's so technical. The way he does things is so smooth and so efficient. And so it wasn't shocking that he could do that. It was just shocking in the context of his performance up until that moment. But the way he feinted with the right hand, extended the left, that forced Usman's head to move off the center line and threw the kick at the same time. It was fucking magic. You can teach someone the reason why that techniques work so well. You couldn't teach them any better than that visual. Because Usman's moving away from the punch and bam, the head kick comes. What is this?
They're drilling this.
Really? Oh my goodness.
I'm gonna go back in
Oh
and
my goodness.
that area. Wait for that shit to leach out.
So they noticed that as he was moving, he would move off to the right hand side. Wow.
Quick little break.
Go circle. And they go with the high kick. That's incredible. I mean, it's perfect. Greatest head kick knockout ever. And I don't think there's a close second. In terms of, you could say Holly Holm versus Ronda Rousey, but Holly Holm is winning that fight.
Good. We'll see what happens when the sun comes
Holly
out.
Holm was avoiding Ronda. She avoided the clinch. She avoided the takedowns. She was dominating her on the feet. Ronda was already beaten up by the time that Holly landed a head kick. Ronda was getting fucked up.
That was a rough night for Ronda Rousey fans.
Very rough night. Very, very rough night. But great night for Holly Holm fans.
Yeah, it was.
This is different. This was a fight where it was a come from behind. He was down 3 rounds to 1. He won the first round, he lost the next 3. But to land that head kick in a fight like that is fucking wild. Especially consider like Leon hadn't fought in so long. He got so many problems. He was scheduled to fight Tyron Woodley in England. That fight got canceled because of the pandemic, and there was all these setbacks.
If I lose the live, that'll be it for the day. We'll pop back on later this evening, probably.
Maybe in the general public.
Just a heads up. I don't know if the live will disappear or not.
Big stars, and he was this like super talented guy that had only lost 1 time in the UFC, and that was to Usman early in his career, and that was when he did not wrestle. So one of the big victories was him taking Usman down in the first round and showing him, hey, motherfucker, I'm a real martial artist. I'm not just a striker. I'm a fully well-rounded martial artist.
We hope the video.
I love you and Daniel's reactions.
Oh my
to some
God,
of the bets.
it's crazy. It's so crazy. I mean, how do you not react that way when that happened? I mean, everyone behind us had the same reaction. There's a video of Tony Hinchcliffe, who's right behind me, and when the head kick lands, he stands up and goes,
Look.
That's different than any other sport. In that, like, or boxing too, is that you come from behind with one move, one thing, and it changes everything and shows it's so funny. But you just haven't seen that in boxing or UFC, I would say, in a while, right?
Very rarely.
Right.
That's what I love about the Tyson Fury Deontay Wilder fights, is because you just knew at any point, no matter who's ahead,
All the plows are out.
one punch from these guys, and it'd be fucking over. Right? But in the UFC, you just don't see that a whole lot, where a guy's getting his ass whooped and then comes back and.
Well, it's a credit to Leon that he was able to do that, but also credit to Leon that he really didn't absorb a lot of punishment in that fight. He wasn't busted up. He didn't have his eyes swollen. He had been concussed and rocked. He was losing, but he wasn't getting beat up. He wasn't getting like tortured. He was still very fresh in the 5th round, which is also credit to his condition. You know, that he was able to fight that kind of brutal fight. Because he had been fasting in Utah. Yeah,
As well,
as
as well as some of the other fights.
Oh yeah.
Multiple fighters were really
Yeah.
conditioning wise. We were other prelims.
Yeah.
People really tired out in 2nd and 3rd rounds of 3-round fights.
Sure.
And both these dudes, Usman as well.
Yeah, but well, trains at least in Colorado, so he's training at altitude, which is great. But there's arguments about that too. One of the arguments is that the best method to do is actually to sleep at altitude, but to train at sea level. Yeah, because it's about how much output you can put out, and that if you're training at sea level, you are able to put in more work, so you have more output. So your heart, you're able to condition your body better, and then you recover at altitude. So in your sleep time, rest time, when your body activates and produces more red blood cells, which enhances your endurance, but you're still doing your work. Yeah, that's the general consensus now. Is they think that it's better to sleep at altitude. So people have these
Woo, sliding.
altitude tents.
Hyperbaric stuff.
No, it's an altitude tent. It's a tent that you sleep in. And so what it is like you are in this diminished oxygen environment while you're sleeping. That's like
A mile or 10,000 feet or something?
yeah, it's something like 10,000 feet. And I know BJ Penn used those when he was fighting, and some other folks have used those. But Leon used that throughout his career. So even when Leon was training in England, before he came over to America to prepare for the final leg of his training, he was sleeping in an altitude tent.
Worked out.
It worked out. Yeah, wild.
Yeah.
And they're gonna have a rematch. If they do have a rematch, it'll be in England. And
So
that would be
Covington
crazy.
won't get Edwards or.
I don't know because a head kick like that. that's something that really needs to be discussed, because his ability to absorb punishment may be, you know, because of that kind of a knockout, when you get knocked unconscious, like Freddie Roach wouldn't let Manny Pacquiao do anything for like a year. He wouldn't let him fight, he wouldn't let him train, he wouldn't let him spar. He was like, you need to take a long time off after Juan Manuel Marquez knocked him out with that one punch. That kind of KO, when you're flatlined by a massive blow with a fucking head kick, which is the most powerful blow that you throw in MMA, you know, that can affect you. And it affects different people in different ways. There's all sorts of different variables that have to be taken into consideration. You know, was it just a flash knockout? Is it going to be fine in a couple of months, or is it something that you don't know what kind of health problems are going to have? Some guys that lose their chin overnight. One knockout. Oh, he's awesome. He's awesome.
Trying to open my breakfast. Fucked up the packaging. Avoidable aspect of MMA, I think, is the weight cutting, and I think it's a real problem.
So what needed to change it?
They need to do hydration tests. They need to have more weight classes, because right now there's only 8 weight classes. So there's some big jumps. And one of the big jumps is 85 to 225, or 265. 205 rather, and then 205 to 265. Those are the big jumps. So 85 to 205, that's 20 fucking pounds. That's so much weight. There's nothing like that in boxing. In boxing, you have guys that are fighting 147, and you have guys that are fighting 154, and you have guys that are fighting 170. That's so reasonable. A 6-pound weight class differences are very reasonable. And then it goes to 68. That's reasonable. You know, then it goes 68 to 75. Also reasonable. These make sense. 7-pound gaps, 6-pound gaps. The 20-pound gaps that they have in MMA are nuts. And then how about the fucking 65 or 60-pound gap from 205 to heavyweight? That's crazy. It's too big. It's too much. And the way these guys are depleting their destroying their body to make weight. You can only do that so many times. Guys start getting kidney damage, they start getting kidney stones, and develop all sorts of issues with their organs. It's just not good.
Temperature's starting to drop.
It's avoidable. It's totally avoidable. If you just structured the weight classes and ran hydration tests to make sure that guys are competing in a weight class that is actually their frame, and it actually fits them, that can be done.
It's weight tire tracks are
Make it happen.
tire tracks breaking.
I brought it up with the powers of
Freezing
be. There's a lot of
surface.
things that I bring up that they go, no, we can't. But they could. And unfortunately, I think it's going to take a tragedy. And, you know, we've had people die overseas. I've seen people on death's door. I remember when Travis Luter fought Anderson Silva, he missed weight. But I was there while he was trying to make weight. So he missed weight, and then they gave him a allotted amount of time to try to make weight again afterwards to see if the fight can still go on. I watched him shuffle because he couldn't walk. So he was shuffling to the weigh-in, to the scale. His lips were cracked, and like you could see like blood in his lips because he was so dehydrated. There was no water.
Yeah.
He had dried himself out to death's door. Like if he had to fight that right then at that moment, he would not have been able to go one round. He was so exhausted. And then the next day he lost. And he looked exhausted when he lost. He wound up losing by submission. He got caught in a triangle, got hit with elbows, and tapped out. But it was more the weight class or the weight cut than it was anything else. You know, you could say that's on him because he didn't do it correctly. Look, you know, Usman is big for the weight class too. So is Leon Edwards. They both made the weight fine, and then they rehydrated. It can be done. But it's avoidable. It's an avoidable part of MMA that I think should really be addressed. And I think it's also cheating. I think it's sanctioned cheating. You know, you're not 180. You're not. You're pretending. You're pretending you're fighting at 185 pounds. You're fighting at 220. That's what you are. You're 220. You just dry yourself out to 185 for the briefest amount of time possible. You hop on a scale early, and then they scientifically rehydrate you up to a healthy level. To dehydrate yourself to the point of literally on death's door 24 hours before a fucking cage fight is crazy. You wouldn't go out and party 24 hours before a cage fight. You wouldn't do any of the things that can deplete your body the same way dehydration does. But yet we allow it. And not only do we allow it, we expect it. It's dumb. It's dumb and it's avoidable. And it's one of the biggest dangers in the sport. There's a company called ONE FC that apparently have some sort of hydration policy. And they change, like people that were competing at lower weight classes are now competing at higher weight classes. They move stuff around, but they've addressed it. And they've addressed it in a way that works of all against way less.
And be preemptive instead of reactive.
Yes.
Proactive instead of reactive. It happened in our league, you know, forever. My rookie year, you know, through day 4, you know, 2 practices a day.
Yeah.
How did that change? Somebody died. And then it was 2-1 and 2-1 and 2-1. And there were kids that died. They went never do double days in a row. And
They
days
died
are
from heat stroke, from exhaustion.
both.
Yeah.
And there was, you know, there was some maybe genetic issues going on, but the root, there was not in policies or education to allow these guys to recover. And what was going on all changed.
You think that's because they are trying to instill mental toughness and just condition them to just extreme doing this, and that like this old school
100%.
thought?
Yeah, it was, you know, it was, and some coaches have still said it today, you know, how do you build callous if you don't, you know, put them through hell? You know?
Right.
And it's like, work smarter, not longer.
Yeah.
Efficiency over time.
Well, I have a thought on that too. Is that, I mean, I think you can make people mentally tougher, but I think at the elite levels of competition, everyone's mentally tough.
Yeah.
And that's not the issue. And I've seen people fight overtrained. You know, I saw Tim Kennedy went through 2 camps in a row because one fight got canceled, and he went right into another camp, and then he wound up fighting with Kelvin Gastelum, and he was gassed out like almost immediately. Which that fucking guy has a gas tank as big as the ocean. He's never out of gas. is. It's like one of his biggest strengths is his fucking relentless pace. But his body was just failing him because it had never gotten the adequate rest and
I mean, a lot older, that's not part of it. It's recovery, hydration, proper eating habits, max performance. We're gonna grind you and see what you is.
yeah.
And the ones that can make the ones that can't.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's not the way it is anymore. But I don't think it ever has to be.
Concussions.
Yeah.
Now people realize what an issue that is. I mean, when you first started playing football, how much talk was there about CTE and concussion? None.
Yeah. Yeah. Back out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now there's much better policies in place and awareness around it. And, you know, probably as much attention as could possibly be to any type of head injury that happens. We have independent people, you know, spotters who can pull people out of games who might have got dinged up. We have multiple independent medical personnel whose main job is to watch for head injuries now, which is great. And the recovery process to actually get back on the field is way more difficult. You got to pass a number of different tests. It's all slotted on a day-to-day basis. It really sets up you're not going to be able to come back the next week.
What protocols do they have for recovery? Like, so if someone gets dinged, they get concussed, what do they do to try to help them?
Well, I don't think that is maybe where it needs to be yet. It's more go home and rest.
Really?
Yeah.
So they don't have any modalities, they don't have any therapies, they don't have anything that they do? Hyperbaric chambers, nothing?
Not in Green Bay.
Really?
And I would say not in probably most places. There's there's business. I'm not just going to talk about the NFL, but there is to doing things always. And I think until they see other people doing it and having success, maybe it's always going to be met with, no, this is how we do things. We've always done it a certain way. This is how we're going to do things. Now, there's education that comes up and conversations, and we further it, but it's not like, hey, you got a concussion? Okay, you're going to hyperbaric or day 1 through 3 and do therapy and do and take this, whatever it might be. There's not.
And what tests do they do on people to make sure that they have recovered?
Cognitive testing, there's balance testing, there's multiple cognitive tests, and it's all, compared to your baseline that you do at the beginning of every season.
When you hear about guys like Jim McMahon that are suffering really badly now,
Yeah, for sure. And I know Jim, and I'm definitely friendly with Jim. I enjoy being around him. He plays in the same golf tournament I do in Tahoe. He's played every year it's ever been on, and I've talked to him about his issues and heard him talk about it as well. And it definitely gives me pause. That's why I'm always, doing research on my own about stuff that people have done. Joe Namath has talked a lot about, his use of hyperbaric chambers actually and healing some of the gray matter that has been associated with traumatic brain injuries. But, CTE has been linked to a number of suicide former players. I think it's an issue. The NFL, I think, a lot to combat it now, thankfully, with the standardization of the helmets that we use is way different than it used to be. I mean, there is a very high standard in testing into that. They've tried to police the helmet-to-helmet hits that we've had. There's way more protection for players that carry the ball. There's protection of all sorts for any type of helmet-to-helmet contact. You can't erase any of it, and some of it, honestly, is the draw to the sport, right? The violent nature of it. But I think all of us realize the risks that we're taking. I mean, you should. You're playing a contact sport, and there's things that to look into and to think about when you're playing and when you're done playing to make sure you're cognitive function is still there, and you're lesser at risk to some of the effects of CTE.
Well, you're a very proactive guy, so I'm sure you have kept abreast of all your own impacts.
Yeah.
How many times do you think you've been concussed?
See, I've had 3 concussions where I've come out of games in my playing time, and obviously taken a number of other hits to the head that didn't classify as concussions, but the last one I had was in 2018, and I got kind of clotheslined, and I went over and sat on the bench, and it's like, oh man, I got a little bit like I was okay on, and just went like one kind of scared me on it. Yeah, it didn't feel like I was concussed. It didn't feel like it felt like kind of a normal shot almost. And then it just came on, and I, basically was losing my vision. And that's when it gets scary. So that's when I really started looking into some of the things that people were writing about and researching on traumatic brain injuries and getting and felt like and then taking out.
Yeah. I saw this article recently about Farm where you're talking about he's had somewhere.
Well, he played in 350 games, so that's like 3 a game.
I think he's talking about his whole life.
Oh, his whole life?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
What does it say here? It said more than 1,000. What we know now is concussions happen all the time. So he believes only suffered 3 concussions in his career. He's now upped that estimate to more than 1,000.
well, I do know that for sure. When he started playing, I believe in '91, the protocol was you got dinged, just take a little break, shake it off, and get back.
Right. That's what's sparring.
Yeah,
I've seen guys get knocked out in the gym and then they're sparring 10 minutes later.
and that's when multiple concussions can happen.
Yeah.
Because once you get dinged the first time, the next hit doesn't have to be anywhere on the same level to have a brain issue.
So he says, what we know now is concussions happen all the time, Favre said. You get tackled, your head hits the turf, you see flashes of light or ring in your ears, but you're able to play. Based on that, thousands. So it had to be because every time my head hit the turf, there was ring or stars going, flash bulbs, but I was still able to play. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if every time you attack,
Any deteriorate for you
would be the end, for sure. Yeah. I mean, my life after football is going to last a lot longer, I hope, than 18 seasons.
That's a lot of seasons.
I'd like to think I got, more than 18 years.
That's kind of amazing that you've done that. I mean, you think the average NFL player, what is the average time playing?
About 3 years.
Wow. Is there a sport like that? I don't think there's another sport like that.
No, I mean, the turnover, it's a huge game. Although Tom has kind of rewritten some of that in playing, 24 years,
He's
I
going
think.
back in again.
Yeah. But they don't make fortunate to still playing at 18 years, but you learn how to take care of your body and avoid. I mean, Tom has avoided, I think, big shots most of his career. He had one knee injury, and other than that, he's been fairly healthy most of his career and not really had any concussive issues. And, I've been able to stay relatively healthy as well in my career. But yeah, it's a young man's game. And that's the fun part is the battle against time and
Go to RBS later.
battle against the young guys trying to take your spot.
You said you've had some knee injuries before, right?
Yeah.
What was the extent of those?
I've had multiple cartilage issues, 2 cleanouts, had an ACL reconstruction, in college, and then just a lot of issues around that, nerve issues, arthritic issues, bursa, inflammation. And then in 2015, after that season, I got cleaned up, and I said,
All right, that's all she
"I'm gonna be
wrote."
serious about my diet." And I cut out a lot of